Alrighty, it looks like with those of you joining us virtually, we have a quorum, so I'll let Mimi get us started.
Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to our NAB meeting. I'm super excited that we're back in person and we have the hybrid capabilities. So thank you so much for being able to accommodate both.
You got it. It took the village.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, I love it, but I really missed being here in person. It's just not the same on Zoom, my attention or something like that. I could never figure out who was speaking and who wasn't, you know. I'm like, oh, who has their hand up? Sorry. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to our presenters and to any neighborhood folks in here. Welcome. It's nice to see everybody here today. All right, so with that, Nick, would you like to call the roll, please?
Yes. Mimi Fuji Strickland,
Here.
Steven Schwartzer, Patrick Fisher.
Here,
Can you hear us all right?
yeah,
Jack Heineman,
Here.
Donna Keats. Don't see her on yet. Tyler Langdon. Mara Longer.
Langers here.
Langer. It's been a while. I'm sorry, Mara. And Hal R. Taylor. Okay, with that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of you here, so we have a quorum.
Can you call the staff too?
Yes, and then we have Councilmember Naomi Dewar and myself
And
and Mary
Mary Potts.
Potts.
Nick, is it possible to move the speaker a little bit closer to Mimi?
To Mimi, there
Yeah.
should be one right next to her. Are you having,
It's
is it?
really hard to hear.
Properly?
It's hard to hear her. We can hear you really clearly, but it's harder to hear her.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mara, can you hear me now? Jack, is that better? No.
Not really.
And you know what, the speaker is right here, right in front of me. Maybe it's not on. How about now, Mara, Jack, you better? Patrick,
That's better. Yeah.
that better?
Mhm.
Okay.
what did you do, Nick?
I just moved the other mic closer to her, so it might present a problem in the future. We'll see.
We now have new time for public comment. Is there any public comment at this time?
We can't hear her anymore.
Any public comment at this time? Can you hear me now?
Give me 1 second.
not in blue.
How about, can you hear me now?
Okay.
Ah, the thumbs up,
It is.
yay.
It was
Nick,
blue
can you
before.
add me into the webinar too when you get a chance?
Got next, okay, now.
Blue is better than red.
Okay.
Is there any public comment virtually, anybody?
Don't see any hands raised.
Okay, no hands raised, all right, we'll move on then. Approval of the agenda for action. Do we have any changes to the agenda this evening? Nick?
No changes.
No changes, all right, I would like to, any motion to approve the agenda, please. Do
Motion through the agenda?
we have a second?
I'll second.
We've got
Mara said it.
first and Marcelo, all those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you so much. Okay, approval of the minutes from January 18th.
Would you like me to put them up on the screen or?
Does anybody have any questions, changes, comments to the January 18 minutes board? All right, seeing none, we'd like to make,
Approve minutes?
thank you. We have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Jack. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Approval of the minutes passed. Council liaison report. Councilwoman
Yeah,
Drew.
thank you. And I assume you can still hear me on these mics. Okay, So welcome, everybody. I see we have a nice audience and people on Zoom joining us. And there was a comment at the beginning of the meeting, and I have worked hard to get these meetings hybrid. So I wanted you to know that so that we can both be present and you can be on Zoom, whatever works for you. I do note that the three people that are on Zoom all live in South Reno. And I just wanted to comment on that. We have not had in-person meetings for the better part of 2 years. We did have about 3 or 4 meetings at the Atlantis where we were working out the hybrid bugs. Many of you participated in those. But generally, we've not been able to meet. This is really our first official meeting back at Moana with all the equipment working. And there's been some interest, even just today, about occasionally meeting at South Reno. And those of you who've been on for a long time know that I've always supported that. We have had meetings at the South Valleys Library a number of times. We've had special meetings at the Damonte Ranch High School. It's not set up like this room where you have a room of this modest size that holds about 65 people. There's giant auditoriums and there's small classrooms. And it's just not perfectly set up for community meeting space. Now, to remedy that long-term, one of the things that I'm doing is, I think most of you know, is moving forward with the Moana pool. And we have some great news to report on the Moana pool, which I'll get to in just a moment. But part of the Moana pool includes 2 meeting rooms. And it's about a mile closer to the freeway than we are here. It's about a mile from this location to the freeway. So it's only about a quarter mile for the last from the freeway to that location. And that location, they're planning a room about this size, about 65, and they're also planning another room. These rooms will be used for community meetings. They'll be used for birthday parties. They'll be able to be reserved for special events for the community. I think you know that reserving a room, let's say at the Atlantis, is pretty pricey. They gave us a really big discount in order to allow us to do it during COVID, which we're very grateful for. But most of the places that we can reserve other than the school and the library cost some kind of money. We've checked into Tamarack at South Reno. We've checked into all kind of meeting locations. And the South Valleys Library worked for a while, but we ran into a standing meeting that was always meeting there at the South Valleys Library on the day we met. And we looked into moving the meeting. That wasn't working at the time. So we just were able to meet there occasionally was one of the reasons. So I am continuing to look for spaces, but I will tell you that Nick and I just went through this, a few months ago. We were trying to do this very same thing, set up a meeting in South Reno. So for now, we'll get the South Valleys Library when we can, now that we're allowed to meet again, and we'll have to bring all of our equipment because they are still not set up for remote meetings, hybrid meetings, to my knowledge. I think they hope to be. And I'll share with you, even the city of Reno had no room set up for hybrid meetings other than the city council chambers, which is can be a pretty intimidating place to meet for a neighborhood. You've got the podium and the screens and all that. It's not just conducive to kind of an informal conversation. Now they have begun to convert some of the rooms into hybrid meeting rooms. And for example, next Monday, because of that, I'll be able to have a meeting with the Western Nevada the Western Nevada Development District in the conference room on floor 7, which is one of the most popular conference rooms there. Has a pretty big table, pretty big screen, just like the one we have here. And let me see what else I can tell you about that. But this is the very first meeting that I have been able to have at City Hall that is fully hybrid. There's one other room, and Brooke may know it. I think it's on the 8th floor of Public Works.
Public Works, also the 6th floor
And-
in the building department.
Yeah. And those rooms are about half the size or maybe a third of the size of this room. So they aren't really amenable for, this kind of meeting. And let me just turn on my video too. I don't know if that's going to be distracting. I don't know if that helps, but maybe I'll just turn it back off. Anyway, so that's the story there. Before I go on, are there questions or comments about where we meet? I'd love to hear them. Anyone on the Zoom? We now have 4 people. I know Tyler lives the furthest south. It looks like Patrick probably lives the closest south, Mara's in the middle, and Jack's in the middle. So any thoughts first from our South Reno residents on the Zoom? About meeting
Support.
locations?
I support South Meadows. I think that's great.
Yeah, well, you have only been on recently and you do not know how many years we have met in South Reno, so I understand that. Let me ask anybody else here on the board.
Jack's got his.
Jack?
I would agree with Mara. I think anything in South Reno, I think the South Valley's library would work great. But I think if we're not going to do that, if we can't, I think this is still providing the Zoom option, especially for people who want to participate in the meeting that aren't on the board, but don't want to drive all the way out there to Moana. I think would really, I think it's a good option.
Yeah, and then let me just ask anybody in the audience that would like to comment on this topic.
I would love more locations in the south.
Yeah, great. All right, so Nick, I'm adding this to your to-do list if you might, and to check out the availability of the South Valley's library. I will share something that ironically has happened. A lot of times when we prepared the agenda for the South, there's been actually items from the north and no items from the south. And then I've moved back to this end and there's been items for the south and no items for the north. And this has happened to me. So if it happens when you are participating, do not be surprised. Okay, because in the 8 years that I've been doing this role, this has happened numerous times. An item gets pulled, like we're planning, oh, this will be a great item, perfect timing to have a meeting in the south, item gets pulled, there's no meetings on the agenda for the south. Just what's happened.
I'm sure you already mentioned this, but you'll be still doing bimodal?
Yes, hybrid. We call it hybrid.
Hybrid, okay. Because
Yeah.
I need to go to South now. This is,
Well, it's for everyone.
it's like everybody.
I mean, I will share with you when I served on the NAB at one time. And when I served on the NAB, there were 2 separate NABs, one in the south and one in the north. And our council member was running back and forth and she couldn't attend all 2 meetings every month in different locations. She often could only attend for about a half an hour. And I don't know if anybody experienced that, but that's what happened. So, I mean, it's kind of becomes a big thing to manage. So anyway, then all the NABs went away. There was 0. And so when we reconvened, we did one and our best approach was just to try to shift the location from time to time. So it keeps you on your toes. Will we be at Moana, South Valleys, Atlantis, Damani? You do not know, but check it out in advance. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention, of course, we have a council meeting coming up. There continue to be a fair amount of appeals, I would say, just something to think about. Everything starts here with the NAB. So projects come here first, proposals, ideas, the project we're going to hear about with the roads. They start here. And so the more we can get this meeting advertised and people aware of what's going on, the more we can sort out issues, the better the comments from the NAB into the Planning Commission. Then what happens is projects go to the Planning Commission and they end up hearing from the public. And a lot of times they're hearing new ideas, new comments, and the Planning Commission may add conditions at that point. And sometimes if either party's not happy, they'll end up appealing. And we have had a bit of a quiescent period, I would say, for 2 or 3 months. But we've already been informed May 11th, we have 2 appeals. We just had an appeal last Wednesday. I think it's sort of, one of these things that kind of comes and goes in waves. So the more work we can do here at the NAB and kind of sorting out the challenges or the benefits of any particular project, I think it's all to the good. So I just wanted to commend you on your work and thank you. There's continued interest in the NAB and I've got some new people that are going to get appointed probably on the first meeting in May. So we'll have some new additions. So I just wanted to mention that. We do have a lot of items coming up and I just wanted to share some scheduling with you all. Let me just, sorry, I meant to have out my phone here. I think I actually put it in my pocket. I did. Some things to get on your radar, some things that are coming up. And there is a lot, and we put several, at least 1 or 2 right on the calendar here today because they're that big that they deserve their own timing. But let me give you an example of some things coming up. Just this Friday, there is a Earth Day celebration. It's called Environmental Justice. And it's about, we're co-sponsoring this with our Reno Police Force. And it is a special event looking at ensuring that all communities in Reno, which is all we really control, receive fair treatment and meaningful involvement regardless of their race, color, national origin, or income with regard to implementation and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. So this special event is going to be on Friday, the April 22nd, from 2:30 to 4 in Liston Park, which is over near Yory Avenue. It's off Yory Avenue, not far from us. Okay. So a very interesting thing, we are going to, and I see our police officers left, but we're going to plant a couple trees in conjunction with the Reno Police Force, just to talk about environmental justice. Another thing that's coming up that you might be interested in, if you're interested in trees again, we plan to have an Arbor Day celebration on Arbor Day, which is April 29th. We are the longest recognized Arbor Day community in Nevada, longest serving. I think we're at 40 years plus now. Arbor, to be a member of the Arbor Day Foundation Board requires that you meet certain criteria, and we have continued to meet them. Some people have started it and not been able to meet those criteria and have dropped out of the program over the years. One of the requirements is that you spend $2 per person on trees. So for our, what do we have, Brooke, 350,000 people, we have to spend $700,000 on trees in order to be, it's just one of many criteria that they have. Anyway, it should be a great event, and we plan to give out some awards and recognize people that have been actively involved in preserving our tree canopy. Also coming up, and we have a special item on this, so I'll just mention it. On May 7th, we have a award to community cleanup. What that means is it has two parts. One part is about collecting trash and bins. And you know, last year we had two of these, one at the Summit Mall and one at Damani Ranch. This one, the people at Double Diamond reached out to me and said, well, we want to co-sponsor. We want to do it in Double Diamond. So we've selected DePoli Middle School as the site. It's going to be May 7th. It's 9 to 12. What we're doing uniquely about this one, I guess since I'm talking about it, we are going to once again do hazardous waste, which was extremely popular. We had a lineup out the back, and that is recycling, getting rid of your oil, your paint, your gas, chemicals that would be considered hazardous waste. We will also have recycling of tires. So we've made that arrangement. We will also, for the first time in my knowledge in the city of Reno, like we like to be groundbreaking here at Ward 2, we will have e-waste collection. Computers, phones, TVs, any kind of thing with a plug really can be recycled in the e-waste. We've never done it before. Most people don't know how to do it. There is a charge for really old TVs that have the old tubes, $40, and there's a charge for standalone CRT monitors of $5, but the rest is all free. And finally, we will also once again be collecting bicycles. A lot of people, their kids grow up or they're not biking, and we'll be collecting bicycles. And we will have an arrangement with the Kiwanis Bike Club again. And then finally, we have not the composting, but we will be doing a community cleanup. And I'm going to save that part for the actual agenda item, unless we might want to skip there, because I think it's towards.
It's the very first, right?
It's
Yeah.
the very first.
Yeah.
So maybe we could combine that, and I could just call up Noemi. Could you join us? Yeah, just right here is fine. Noemi is a council liaison. I don't know if many of you have met her maybe one time when Nick was gone, I think.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Noemi Garza Martinez, and I am a council liaison for the city of Reno. And I will be helping with the community cleanups, which is a huge initiative for all wards. Councilmember Dewar is hosting one at the Foley Middle School, as we mentioned. And so she already really touched on the topics that we'll be having, but it's a really great way for us to get the community out there, really engaged, and get people to come out and bring any trash, debris, e-waste is a big thing that's very popular. We're just confirming some of the cost of the TVs and the monitors. However, that's a good way for people to come and bring their trash and debris and just a lot of the items that they have here, and also a way to engage the community. We'll have volunteers out there, so it is an open invitation to all the NAB members. You'll be getting an email from me very soon. We'll send that out tomorrow with all the details, but we do invite you. We would like volunteer opportunities. So if you want to come out and volunteer, as well as come and bring any of your items, we'll be out there at DePoli May 7th from 9 to 12. If the bins do get full, we will close those down. So we do have 9 to 12. However, it is very popular. We understand that, but we do have 5 large bins there. But we do invite all of Ward 2 to come out there. It's a good opportunity. Clean out your area, the garage or your home. And so it's an opportunity for us to really help out.
Now, Amy, you mentioned volunteers, and I think you've been preparing a volunteer list. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we are taking volunteers, so we would need help with anyone managing the bins, as well as the e-waste or the hazardous waste, or just managing traffic. We do understand this is a very popular event, so we will have people lining up, so it would be very helpful to help people manage with the traffic. So we do have, if you visit reno.gov in our calendar section, this event is hosted on there, as well as a link to volunteer. You just put your name, very basic information. That way I can reach out to you and give you all the details of volunteer. But I do encourage you, if you're able to volunteer, if you know anyone that's interested in volunteering, just go to that form. Super simple, and that's all you have to do.
And I think you said that during the mayor's cleanup, 80 people signed up to volunteer generally for the city.
Yes,
Right.
we did have a good amount of people that were interested, aside from the first cleanup that we had, that we kicked off. The mayor did kick off the first cleanup of the year at the river. And so we did have over 80 people that were still interested in volunteering. And so if you want to be added in a volunteer group, in the form when you do sign up, it does ask, are you interested in volunteering in additional City of Reno events or cleanups? You can just click yes, and then when opportunities come up, I will reach out to you. And then if you would like to volunteer, then you let us know. If not, it's just a passing.
And do you think, we had talked about making sure we have at least 10 volunteers for this event, maybe 2 per bin. Do you want to speak to that?
We do. It would be ideal to have about 12 people. It would be good to have 2 people per bin, since we have a total of 5 bins, a partnership with waste management. That way, as constituents come in with their items, we have 2 people per bin taking it out and helping out. And then we need about 2 people to help with traffic. So that's about 12 people. So it may not seem like a lot, but all the help is very much appreciated. And so if we can get 12 people, that'll be really good, because truly all these events really do function as a community. They are Reno community cleanups because we want it to be very engaging and bring in the community. We want to beautify our neighborhoods, keep them clean. And so we can't do it with public.
And then you mentioned one other thing to me, that there would also be a cleanup going on, like of grounds. It's pretty clean down in Double Diamond generally, like the bigger stuff is gone. But what are you thinking there? Is like KTMB or some other group going to organize that? Or you yourself? Or
yeah, so KTMB will not be involved in this cleanup. It depends on the board and the need. However, we really do encourage all our community members to go out and clean. We have a challenge that we do is, like, if you're able to go out into your community, get a bag and come back and bring us some trash or debris, then we'll give you a nice goodie bag in return. So we always encourage our community members to go out into the neighborhoods. We live there. We want to make sure they're beautified. And so we always encourage them no matter what. However, it's a good opportunity to go out and engage with the community.
okay. Well, I think for this one, I think that might be another kind of sort of new thing that we haven't added yet to these. So it'll be more of an experiment. One experiment we're not going to do this time is the last 2 times Nick and I pioneered again composting. So we brought in light leaves and grass clippings and all of it. And what we found was that we had to staff the bins because people brought bags of leaves and grass and they threw the bags in, and bags can't be mixed in with the green waste. So we are planning to do that again in the fall when there's leaves again, but we're not, this time we decided to again focus on the hazardous waste and try the e-waste as an experiment. So thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, if anyone has any questions, otherwise we just encourage you to come out May 7th from 9 to 12. If you're not able to make it, we do have another community cleanup coming up this upcoming Saturday. Dick Taylor Park. So I understand that people have different schedules, but Councilmember Dewar really wants this to come forward, and I think it's really important as well as constituents coming in and supporting. So I really hope to see you all there, and if you want to volunteer.
Well, the people that virtually demanded it, I mean, it's just not really just me. I mean, when Damani saw, the Double Diamond saw what was happening at Damani, they said, no, move it over closer to us this time. I mean, it's almost become like a competition. So, and we do want to do one again in the fall. And to that note, I may not have mentioned, there's also an upcoming tree planting. I'm switching gears back to so thank you, Noemi.
Any questions? Sorry, any questions?
Yep. There is a tree planting, and this is very general for the whole city. And it is not on my calendar, but I know that it is also in Dick Taylor Park. Do you recall the date, Nick?
I think you're talking about,
Oh, I know when it is.
30th?
I think it's the 30th,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're doing a tree planting. I just didn't have it the right color here. Making it green now so I can find it. A tree planting in Dick Taylor Park for those that are interested. Dick Taylor Park is sort of, how would you describe it? Over near Valley and Evans and University, on the east side of the university. So one of the reasons that we're doing it there is that our urban forester has looked at the whole city of Reno and has looked at areas that are particularly treeless and particularly hot. And we're trying to prioritize in those areas. Prior to this, we were just doing random parks that needed trees. And now we're trying to very strategically go where areas that they've identified with heat mapping really need trees. So I think with that, I'm open to any questions, and I want to kind of pull this part of the meeting to a close. Any comments from me? Okay. So I am done, Mimi.
Okay, thank you so much. We just got done with the council liaison report and rolled in the Reno community cleanup.
Correct.
So now we're going to go to A6 with Nick. Any staff liaison report, please?
I think a couple things I wanted to touch on. I know the NAB had mentioned that they wanted the development forum and links on the agenda, so I included that. It's a bit of feedback. So hopefully everyone noticed that. I can also put that back in the chat in case anyone has any issues accessing that. I did want to let everyone know for Earth Day, we will be selling the Relief Reno shirts. I just got them in today, so they exist. They're very nice. I'll show everyone here.
Nice.
But they turned out really good. We'll be selling those, and they'll be benefiting Relief Reno, which is obviously very apt for Earth Day. I think that's going to be a great event. And then I don't know if Councilmember Dewar mentioned it, but we did decide on pounding Veterans Memorial Park for Arbor Day.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yes.
Okay, good. So that is near the Pioneer and for everyone down near downtown. And I imagine we'll plant a ceremonial tree because we've done it there a couple times. We've done it in Idlewild. We've done it at Stewart Park. We try to move it around, but keep it somewhat centralized to downtown. And so pounding, is it the Pounding Veterans by Pioneer?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, that's a lot of items. And then did you want to comment to Nick about just getting the comments in? I know we've had some.
Yeah.
comments.
Just so you're aware, we have a question from Mara that we should address after, but in regards to the development projects, I know Donna had noticed that some of them hadn't been sent to the planning commission. On the back end, although I don't receive the form, the liaisons are able to see what's coming to the NAB, what's going to the planning commission, et cetera. So we will be changing that so that administratively, the planners will just check a little check marks to say that they got the comments from the NAB and are planning on sending them to the planning commission. This will help because I'll be able to look and see, okay, I know Donna or Mimi or Steven had commented, and there should be something in that packet before they post and send to the planning commission. So I think that'll be a pretty simple fix, and it'll be very tangible because you'll have access to me.
So another aspect to this is that sometimes the public fill out these forms too.
Yes.
And physically, we're back physically. So we had evolved. This is really the first kind of 6-month period that I recall that the comments have not gotten into planning commission in my 8 years. So sometimes people fill out comments here. one of the ideas I was gonna suggest is that they electronically send those comments to the planning commission.
Yes, that's the way that they do it currently. But it seems like whatever program or however they're collecting those, they have not always translated and gotten to the planning commission. But everything is digital so that we can't lose the paper record, which I think is very important. It's just unfortunate that we have lost the electronic record.
Okay, so let me ask one more question on this. If someone here fills out a form, would they give it to you and you would scan it in and email it to planning commission?
If for some reason someone was unable to use a computer, I mean, I have my computer here and I'd rather just help them navigate that process. If they wanted to write the comments, I would put them in digitally so that that was already sent to the planning commission / the planner.
Okay.
No longer in my hand.
Okay, because I even see people here, or I heard some people today say they had sent comments and their comments didn't show up, nothing to do with here.
Sure.
So I think it's not just a here problem. So,
I think I completely understand that, but I think because tangibly I can see and know that, Mimi sent in comments or something like that. If I notice that Mimi's comments aren't in, it's very likely that someone else's comments are.
right,
I understand what you're talking about. There's a checkbox that you can see.
I have a back-end tracker to see what is coming to the NAB in the future and what has already gone to the NAB and will be going to the planning commission. That's why, for example, there was a project or a development that had come here a couple weeks ago, I think Gateway at Galena, and now it's back. And I was curious, why is it coming back? But that's because it's part of the annexation.
Right.
So because I can see all that on the back end, I know what's coming and I know what's put on the agenda. And that's the only way I know how to put something on the agenda. So I'm frequently, constantly checking that. And so if I see, after we meet, a couple of days after I see and notice that, they don't have anything in from Donna, then I know there's something fishy going on and we need to fix the technical error.
Hey, thank you so much, Nick.
Yep.
That's good. Always trying to perfect that comment process, huh?
Always trying.
Speak really quick. My name is Brooke Oswald, I'm a planner. So we often work with these, and these are really important for us to get to incorporate into our staff report. So please fill out those comment forms. Please provide those comments. They're really important. So we'll continue to work with the liaisons to make sure not only are we getting those to the planning commission, but reading to staff so that we can incorporate those comments into our staff.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
How do you know? Like, that something came here, you're the planner of the day or whatever on a particular project, or the planner presenting a particular project. So it's come here, it's going to the planning commission. People fill out their online public comment things that the address we're all given. When that goes into, how does that sort through to end up for you?
We are receiving public comment several different ways. So we'll be receiving it from Nick and the NAB. We will receive personal emails because those are on our posting. Our emails are on the posting. We're receiving phone calls, so those are incorporated, and we try to get those as much as we can transcribed or to get the content. A lot of times we get the comments that are very similar, and so we kind of group where those are. So we are gathering those a myriad of different ways, and then Reno Direct is another one. So Reno Direct is sending those. The planner is compiling all those together, reviewing those, incorporating those comments, and making sure that those are getting over to the
So like
reviewing.
public comments, when I write public comments on public comment, whatever, online, where does that go? Does that go to an item because I specified an LCD number? Or like, how does that?
They are going several different places, and so we're working, our administrative staff is doing that between the
There's
planners.
too
and
many
then
people that have to manage.
There's a lot coming in, and we want the option that someone can provide comment in many different forms, right?
Right.
Because it's the convenience of that. And so, yeah, we are managing that with our staff, and then the planner really is the key point that we like to get that to. Now, oftentimes we have written our staff report and we're still receiving comment in. So you won't see that comment in the staff report because it's already being published, but all of those are directed or are forwarded directly to the planning commission or city council, whatever the appropriate
They usually
body.
get attached at a day of meeting kind of thing in the publicly accessible.
Yeah, we're
So what is that?
is the planner anything that comes in after I have published my staff report, I am putting, if it needs to go to the planning commission, I put planning commission and I send it directly to them. It has to go to city council if it comes in after that point. I send it to city council, then I make a copy, put it in the hard copy so that I can do my own hard copy. So
And sometimes well, often the council meetings, there are comments submitted, right after the cutoff before, and then comments received that day, but they're still on the accessible part of the full agenda. Like, I can still see them, even the ones that just came in that morning.
Yes.
They're still,
and then the written comments at a planning commissioner, those are given back to the planner, and then incorporated into we scan them and try to get them into a digital file of some sort, but they are in a hard file form too.
one more question on that, if you can spare the moment.
Chair?
When it goes forward, in the way back years, every time if something got to council, there was this pile added to this pile, added to this pile. So all the NAB meetings then went to the planning commission, and then even if it was once or twice at the planning, both times went together, and then
Correct.
what ended up going to council was the whole string all the way back to the NAB public comments. I don't see that anymore.
Is that true?
What we're often seeing now is that, and I'm not sure how the clerk office is bringing those over and circulating them. I can find that information and try to get that to us.
I
But-
see it needs to be skinified, but it drops off by the time. it
Well, I
gets to
think a
council.
lot of what you'll see is the planning commission staff report, right? That is attached to all city council things. And so a lot of those comments that came through that planning commission stage are in there. Now, if we're receiving comments after that, we are usually forwarding them straight to the CC body or the city council. Or if we can collect them, get them into the staff report. Our staff reports, there is about a 3-week window that our staff report is due to the day you see it at council. And so oftentimes there's a really short window. So a lot of those get forwarded in that 3-week period to the city council directly and aren't in the staff report.
So I guess what I'm asking then, it sounds like what you're saying. I just want to make sure I'm getting this. I see diminishing forwarding of things over the years so that there's no longer 17,000 pages, there's only 8,000 pages for council to review. But nevertheless, what I see in some of these things that by the time it gets to council, is one line saying, went to the NAB, no major objections noted. That's it in the staff report, but you don't really know that. That's not really satisfying from a public perspective. I mean, me, a member of the public, it's not very satisfying that really happened or that that's really true. And would like to see the comments. So I think I'm hearing you say that things get summarized going forward so that if it's all in by the time the staff report goes in, you can then say, we had a meeting, this was the answer, and take care of 95.
I'm going to jump in here because that is not actually the way I understand it.
Okay.
So whenever I, as a council member, look at the packet, traditionally, I can't swear the last 3 months, but traditionally I see all of the NAB comments that were folded up into the planning commission. I don't always see all the planning commission comments, frankly, but I do see the NAB comments. And then what happens is we get this separate report now that has everything summarized from the clerk. So I have almost always seen the NAB comments. It's only been lately that they've been missing. And we even had a problem with the minutes. We recently, at our last meeting, we had the wrong minutes in there. I mean, people are human, things happen. And I think we're always working on better processes. But wouldn't you say, Brooke, that the goal is to have all of the comments that were submitted prior to your staff report there?
Yes, our
Okay.
goal is to have all the comments there and to have reviewed them as the plan.
As well.
Making sure that we understand
Okay.
that what's going on and making sure that if those do come in after, we're getting to the appropriate
Yeah.
body.
I'm just saying, what I can see,
Yeah.
a member of the public, by looking at the full agenda is not necessarily what you get.
No,
So
that is not correct. I mean, we get what is in fact, the one online is often more up to date because it's printed a few days before the meeting. That's what I have. Then they add comments into the online. So that's how it is. But I think we've kind of covered this topic.
Yes.
And I think that the staff are committed to trying to do better and are looking at some improved processes to make sure that nothing is dropping the ball during this challenging time of electronic, hybrid, COVID, et cetera, that we get back to making sure everything gets where it needs to be. So
Thank you.
I think we're there.
Yep, thank you, Councilwoman. All right, we're going to move on to the next item, B2. This is RPD's quarterly report.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome. Thank you so much.
Matt Peterson, I'm a lieutenant for the Reno Police Department. Don't know which lieutenant you had before, but. now you're stuck with
Usually
me.
Shaw or,
Shaw has retired.
okay. We've had several over the years.
So for the time being, it'll be me.
Okay.
Well, welcome. So we're glad you're here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Point of interest right off the bat are, sure, trying to think of what her title was, but an analyst statistician as far as the crime stats. She has resigned her position in the city of Reno. So we're actively looking for her replacement. This is the last batch that she sent out is what you have now. So
Excuse me, I'm sorry, can you repeat your name? I'm sorry,
Matthew Peterson.
again.
Lieutenant Matthew Peterson.
Thank you.
I was gonna suggest you might want to move to this chair, frankly, for here.
I didn't know where to say.
That's okay.
You're good right here, brother.
We've never quite had this as a
We
new
don't know either.
configuration for this, for us.
Can you guys hear on this microphone?
Hello.
Yes, thank you. Can hear well.
So I was telling them that the analyst statistician has resigned her position with the city of Reno until we get a new person hired and then up to speed on this, the stats will not be able to be provided. There's no one to provide those. So what I have is the last batch that she had created before resigning her position. The biggest thing that stuck out right off the bat was stolen vehicles. Between the difference between.
I'm sorry, Lieutenant, do we all have those? I don't have one. I don't know if the people in the audience have
Should be in your
them.
agenda packet.
What's that?
Should be in your agenda
The
packet.
agenda packet, and then do people out here have these?
I'm presenting on the screen.
On the
but
screen,
in some
okay,
of the agenda packets, yes. it is.
got it. Okay, very good.
Can you show me which one you're using though? Because
This should be in March.
I've got February, March, and my numbers are not lining up with what you got there.
This was sent straight from Darla.
414, okay, now it is, now I see it.
And maybe
Okay.
you could expand this, I don't know.
Maybe make larger.
Yeah, and you could minus the people on the side a little bit. There you go. Does that work for you?
Okay, so the first one that I saw, obviously, that sticks out was the increase in stolen vehicles from February to March. Significant increase. I researched those. Found that the majority of those are coming out of the various apartment complexes. And specifically 7 of those being Honda type vehicles. So just a point of interest for those who drive Hondas or know someone who does. But there was nothing significant otherwise other than apartment complexes where those were originating from.
And those are throughout Ward 2.
Some at Sierra, Longley, Offenhauser, Meadowood, Kitski, Talbot, Offenhauser. So, yeah. Second thing I was looking for was the assaults aggravated, trying to keep up on those. Those actually seem to be pretty well controlled in this specific ward as in comparison to some others. Although none are acceptable, of course, but one was a child abuse resulting in arrest. A battery with a deadly weapon that was a bar fight. Parking lot road rage, which was unable to determine the aggressor in that one. And then 2 were related to a specific location that is a high traffic area for calls for service. One of the things that was a good result recently, the regional gang unit conducted a suppression after dealing with violence between 2 specific gangs that have in this ward. They concluded that on April 4th, also using their regional partners to assist with that. It resulted in 18 arrests, 16 of those being felonies, approximately 26 gang field interviews, 7 parental contacts, meaning with the parental contacts, the officers are trying to divert people that may become entrenched in the gang culture and instead trying to divert them to resources rather than continuing down that path. As a result of those arrests, 2 major shooting cases, one at Smith Ridge Park Apartments And then also one at Wilkinson Park were led to the closure of those cases with those arrests. So that was the biggest things that I saw on those. Did anybody have questions that I try and answer?
I have a question, but yeah, could you show the people again?
Do you want me to stop screen sharing?
No, you could just, if anyone's raising their hand.
Not seeing any hands, right?
Okay, I had a question. You know, you said a really interesting thing. First of all, you didn't point out a really interesting thing in your statistics, which is that it looks like from March 2021 to March 2022, you have a 28% reduction in overall crime in our Ward 2.
Okay.
Which I think is really worth noting. Also similarly, same with vehicle burglary, 66% reduction. And then on the other hand, on residential burglary, we have 166% increase in the March. Now, I don't know if March, you know, obviously you're comparing March to March, you know, maybe a better comparison is per quarter, you know, like who knows if they committed it on March 31st or April 1st, or, you know, it's kind of random. It's spring, right? So it could be another kind of interesting when you get your new person to just ask them to also look quarter to quarter maybe and see if there's changes, winter, spring, fall, and summer. And you might not do the traditional quarters of like January 1, April 1, and so on, but you might look at more of the seasonal quarters and see if crime changes throughout the season in the different wards. So it might be interesting seeing what's happening in the summer versus the winter. But I'm pretty happy with how things are going. I mean, I know that just talking about what you do, I looked back and over the last 2 years, as I recall, we've added about 20 police officers in different capacities, 12 maybe sworn, and I think it was 8 that are part of the forensics unit now. That's what-
Three were, we created a forensic investigation
Right.
team, 1 supervisor and then 2 criminalists in
Right.
that system.
So I just had them send me the statistics, so I may be misconstruing it with the forensic unit and some other parts
Mhm.
of the police force, but I thought that was pretty good when we've had 0 for so long.
Yeah.
And I know there's a number of plans recommended for this year in this budget. And then one other thing that you may or may not be aware of, the folks, is that the council has authorized the $60 million debt issuance, and it's to cover 3 things. One is a portion of the Moana pool. The total cost of the Moana pool is 45 million, and about half of that we have capped. So half of the 45 million, let's just say 25 million is going to be debt finance. But the second big piece is our new police headquarters, where we're renovating at the RGJ building. And that is included in that debt issuance. And we're making, I think, a final vote. I just saw the agenda today on the debt issuance. So I'm pretty excited about that. And the other, we're already working on it. Do you know much about that? I saw
About the
Scott.
new
Yeah.
facility.
Yeah,
I just know what was released to us as far as progress, and that they're definitely working on it.
yeah.
And we have a retired lieutenant that was involved with the
I
process,
met with him.
Scott Dugan,
Dugan.
and he's a portion of that planning, as I understand it.
Yeah. They actually invited me to go over the whole tree plan because RGJ had a lot of trees on site and they're gonna have to take some down to accommodate the parking lots, because we finally will have an opportunity to have parking on site for our police officers and other people that are visiting. But we'll also have like 45 spots, as I remember, for the public, something we've not had. So I think it's really remarkable progress recently.
Yes, the department, the new facility is something that's long overdue, and they're
Right.
very excited about that. As far as with the staffing, one of the things that we chase, unfortunately, in our profession is retirements coupled with the new hires.
Right.
And we have to get ahead of that because a lot of it is replacing attrition when we need to, as the city expands, we need to expand our numbers,
Right.
and the numbers a lot reflect just attrition. So
Right.
that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, well, very good. Do you have anything else for us?
No, ma'am.
I do have a question. I
Yeah.
see in our Ward 2, it has commercial burglary at 0%. Do you know the commercial burglaries around the different wards are all
So-
different numbers. I see ours is at 0%.
When the reason for the 0% is the change,
Yeah.
percentage change, meaning it stayed the same in the two different Marches, March 2021 and March 2022.
So, okay, so that seems remarkable that it is the same as that low. So that's great news.
During that time period as reported.
Yes, during that time period as reported, I'm like, wow, okay. So,
For commercial, I think they're more reported. I do think that some vehicle burglary goes unreported simply because
of course,
frustration and, I mean, some people are realistic. What are the cops going to be able to do if I report that my window was broken and my X was stolen? But if we don't have that information, you had the slide with the map,
yes,
trying to figure out how to combat that makes it more difficult. Even online reporting, we still get the information and it's correlated into these reports.
thank you. Anybody on virtual have any questions?
Quick question, and you might not have the answer. Any insight on how we model staffing? You mentioned there the need for additional officers as we get larger.
Mhm.
And is that based is the number based on population? How do we determine what the right size is?
So there's a couple of different thoughts on that throughout the country. Different entities use different formulas. The city just conducted an extensive report. It won't escape me what the name of it was at the moment. I've read it twice. But it details specifically what the recommendation of this consulting entity, which is basically retired law enforcement professionals that go and they look at the process as we do. They make their recommendations and that came back to the city and then was ultimately released to us. So to answer your question, it looks like, I believe, I'm obviously not the chief, when he's determining what he's going to ask council for as far as staffing and getting to that process. Unfortunately, that's only half the equation. We still have to find the right people to hire and get them through the process. So to hit a number, I believe they're using that one, there's different models. Some of them are like 1.2 per 100,000 residents. Different things like that. I think the one I'd have to look to be sure because I'd be cutting off the cuff, but
To that recommendation, where are we currently staffed?
I don't know that one. Current staffing, but
Just out of curiosity.
yeah, in relation to percentage wise, we're at 300 and
I remember 350.
Yeah,
sworn,
I was gonna
and
say
then
350.
I remember there's another, maybe 100 that are administrative or some other kind of role that don't carry a gun. I guess that's the difference between sworn and not sworn. I'm not sure.
Well, sworn would be a badge and a firearm
Right.
capable. I know that one of the chief's we always need more police officers, but
Right.
one of the big things he has been pushing in the most recent requests is our staffing other than the police, meaning CSOs are able to go and do this, things that come out in the field and do the things that we don't necessarily need a police officer, sworn police officer to do. Record staff, those poor people are inundated with requests now. They do all the requests, public service requests for these reports, the list goes on. We have one nice lady who does transcription for the officers. Could probably use 10 of them. I don't think the city is going to fund that at this time, but the reality is all the extras that go with it. So
Not that you have the answer to this question. Our ward is one of the largest and fastest growing wards
Yes.
out there.
Hmm.
And so what I see, what's cause for concern is because a lot of our subdivisions are heading further east and, up the mountain. And we're moving further and further out. Then not to mention bajillions, that's the official word, right? Bajillions of apartments that are getting built all at once as well. And so I do have cause for concern with, the number of, or lack thereof of staffing of police officers for us, just because our ward is growing so quickly and it's getting spread out so far that, how is, and I know other wards are having this, like in the North Valleys as well. And that's another concern because they're growing out and further out as well. the words that are growing so rapidly, it's like, do we know, does the police department, do they have a plan with
Yeah.
having been
Well, let
able
me-
to put more officers in those larger growing?
Let me just quickly address, I know that we just had 3 solid days of budget hearings a couple weeks ago. The mayor brought up the possibility of having, call it field offices, I don't know what the right term is, but a place for police to gather. They mostly use their cars, right? That's their home, got their computer, those that are on patrol. But citing officers maybe in some other locations. That was brought up. I don't know if that becomes progress this year. I did want to comment, I pulled up the statistics I was sent, and I will just tell you what I got, that we added 12 police officers in FY '20, none in 2021, and in 2022, 7, 4 mental health counselors that are embedded in the police office, in the RPD, 1 forensic evidence supervisor, and 2 criminalists. And then, just so we know how big the demand is, this year, they have requested 36 positions.
Naomi, real quick to Lieutenant's point, in those years, is that net or?
Yeah,
gross?
that's brand new. That's in addition to any backfilling.
Okay, so that represents positions that we've added to the force, but not necessarily representative of the vacancies in the force itself.
I don't know, they haven't reported vacancies to us. I don't have any info on that.
Gotcha.
You do have some vacancies. I don't have the specific number. I know there's 2 or 3 retirements this month. Like I said, the analyst,
Lieutenant Shaw,
I'm sorry,
Lieutenant Shaw, a couple
No,
weeks ago.
he's been a while ago, yes.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Dugan was the most recent as far as lieutenant, but like with the analyst that I just talked about, there's something I had to your point, now I can't remember what it was. But the process too, I mean, it takes about 18 months to go from, I'd like to be a police officer to, here's your keys,
Right.
go that way, kid, and do good type of
Right.
thing. And that, of course, is a strain. And we, unfortunately, the realization is some people aren't going to make it through the processes, the training, the field training and probation. And as a result, I do know, I just had that today in briefing. We had 1 officer that transferred over from a different agency, and she'll begin her training here in another week. And it'll be abbreviated training, so because she has experience somewhere else. So the lateral officers help, but it's currently open and has been open for some time for hiring. So
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming today.
you're welcome.
Great to meet you.
Yes, and thank you for your information.
I try to guess what you're going to ask me, and I never guess right. So
Well,
Yeah,
Keep going.
we don't know what we're gonna ask.
all right, thank you.
thank you, sir. All right. Moving on we're going to be moving into some presentations this evening. Our first one is going to be presentation on Peckham Lane Rehabilitation Project. We're going to be presented by the Regional Transportation Commission. And with that, looks like we've got a great group of staff here today. Who's with us today?
Well, I'm Andrew Jane Corral. I'm the project manager for the RTC on both the Peckham and Siebel project.
Okay,
And we have Sean Teeter with Nichols Consulting, who is the designer and coordinator for us on the Peckham Lane project. And we have Dean Mottram here, who is with CA Group, and they are our consultant and designer for the Siebel project.
thank you so much. Well, nice to meet all of you, and thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to your presentation. Go, lady.
We'll grab the stuff real quick. You want to move the mic closer over here?
I think you have the big one right there, or you're welcome to hold this bad boy.
Scoot back over and just move.
No.
Oh, you're moving over. Oh, Andrew, this thing's also.
This is, so I don't need this. Okay, just want to make sure. Make sure I speak loud and clear. Hey. All right, well, thank you everyone for joining our presentation. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share you guys with our project on this Peckham Lane project. And it's a rehab project, so it's a roadway rehabilitation project. So.
Nick, this does not look like it's showing.
Is it? It says sharing spot.
There you go.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive right into this project. So let's go ahead and zoom right into the project scope. So let's talk about the highlights of this project. So the first thing we're gonna do on this project is do the roadway rehab. So we're gonna excavate the roadway and add new pavement on Peckham Lane between Baker Lane and South Virginia Street. As you can see on the screen right here, here's Baker Lane, and then here's Virginia Street. And all this will be excavated and new pavement will be added. Second feature of this project is we're gonna rebuild the driveways along this corridor. So we have all these driveways along the Landis property, along Reno Town Mall. And then there's two driveways right here that we're gonna be consolidating to one because of access and safety concerns. So that's gonna be reconfigured. Third aspect of this job, we're gonna reconstruct sidewalk panels. So we're gonna remove and replace some sidewalk panels as needed. There's some sidewalk panels that are broken and we're gonna replace those ones, but the ones that are out there and that are still looking good, we're just gonna leave them as is. And we're gonna add a new sidewalk right here that's connect Baker to this sidewalk on the north side of Peckham. And lastly, we're gonna work on the intersection of Peckham and Baker. We're gonna improve the pedestrian crossings and accessibility, relocate the traffic signals, essentially get rid of those pork chop islands if you guys have driven through those
Yes.
intersections, because there are kind of a hassle to maneuver through. So we're gonna get rid of those and relocate the traffic signal poles out of the roadway so it's more safe, okay? So. Oh,
A question on that one.
yes,
Where you were just pointing, so when you're coming from, let's say, the Atlantis, you mentioned going west, there's sort of a jog
right.
right there. So will that stay, that jog?
No, we're gonna realign the road.
Oh.
So those pork chop islands are getting removed and the poles are gonna be behind the
Back, and
sidewalk.
it'll just be a straight,
Exactly, it'd be much
Okay.
safer that way.
okay.
So here's a little close look to that sidewalk connection. Right now, you have the dirt path essentially, and you have the ditch right there. So we're gonna add railing and we're gonna add sidewalk to connect here to the new ramps and to the sidewalk over here. And then for this intersection, these are the modifications that we're gonna be doing. So we're gonna reconstruct all the ped ramps, which will essentially reduce the ped crossing times around here, so pedestrians can get out of the way a lot sooner. And we're gonna relocate the traffic signal poles, essentially from where they are now, and move them behind the curb of the sidewalk. So these are gonna go away and it's gonna be a lot better. Okay,
While you're looking at that one, could you go back?
yeah, absolutely.
Do you have to, on the building on the right, that white building, are you gonna have to acquire land from them?
Yes, we are, yeah, we are, right? Yeah.
A permanent easement will be needed in order to expand the
Everything.
pedestrian ramps.
And we're coordinating, I think that belongs to the Atlanta, so we're coordinating with them. and-
That property does?
Yes, yes, so.
It doesn't belong to the White House.
I think the owners of the Atlantis own this parcel
Ah.
right here, yes. So we've talked with them and they agree with this project and they are more than happy to see the improvements that are coming along at this intersection as well too. Okay, here's a plan view of the actual intersection at Baker Lane and Peckham Lane. So you can see that going this direction is northbound, this direction is westbound, going this direction is eastbound, and going this direction is southbound. You can see the ped ramps are being reconfigured, so they're being pushed out a little more on all four corners. So it reduces the ped crossing. And then the poles for the signals are gonna be put behind the sidewalk over here and here. And then the right turn, there's pretty much all the lane will be the same essentially. So not much is gonna be changed in terms of the lane configurations. You're gonna still have the right turns, you're gonna still have the left turns. So it's just essentially the main point of this intersection is we're gonna get rid of the pork chop islands, which is currently a hazard to all the drivers maneuvering through that intersection. Okay. So next up, project schedule. Our design for this project is completed. we're planning to start construction in August 10th. Around that time frame, we've talked with the Atlantis and they would like us to start construction after the conclusion of August 9th. So make it easy for them. And this will be about a 2-month project. So we are planning to be complete with this project in mid-October. And also as where schedule may change. So, but this is our tentative plan right now. We hope to get in August and be out October, and hope everyone will enjoy the new roadway and safe maneuvering through the new reconfigured intersection at Peckham and Baker Lane. All right, with that, a pretty simple project. If there's any other questions, I'll open the floor for questions.
Will Peckham Lane be closed, like both directions be closed since you're tearing up the entire roadway? Will it actually be, that section be closed?
No, we've told the contractor to at least maintain one way of direction, so the roadway won't be closed all the time. So we'll make sure that driveways will have accessibility and drivers can get to and from their destination. So we'll always maintain at least a lane going through the project.
Long time coming, very much needed.
I know, yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Anybody,
Any comments?
is there any other questions from our virtual
go.
folks? Thank you.
Don't see any.
Not seeing any questions or hands raised.
Anybody in the audience, questions this evening? No?
Yeah, waiting for the big project.
Well, that's great. No, that's definitely a must needed rehabilitation project. So thank you. So, okay.
She must have heard me because I think 5 years ago, I made a comment about Baker and Peckham with those islands, and
Mhm.
I got the honors to do it.
Yeah. I'm gonna give a little introduction to the next one on Steamboat. So some of you may remember that, I'm gonna say it was, Andrew, 4 years ago? Three to 4 years ago at Monty Ranch High School.
Mhm.
We had a meeting, South Reno,
Oh, the
Road
subtitle
study.
Yes, yes.
and it went from the Pink Scholaries, as everyone knows it, down to basically Mount Rose Highway
Mhm.
and Geiger Grade. And at that time, I want to say 25 projects were identified. It was a
Oh, yes,
lot.
There's a lot of needs and improvements for that area of our city, and this is being one of the like near-term, like high priority
Right.
improvements that needs to be done right away, not later, but sooner.
Right.
Because, you know, as you mentioned, Mimi, that there's tons of growth on the east side of the Monty Ranch, and, you know, as you're aware, there's apartments gonna be coming in, and, you know, traffic is already bad now.
Right.
So we need this project to help alleviate some of the congestion, so way drivers can get to their destination sooner, so that way it reduces their risk of frustration and increases traffic safety.
Yeah. So when we met, originally the plan, as I recall, was to bundle everything up and do this kind of 10 years out. And I remember that we talked about what could we do sooner rather than later. That would really help. And one of the things that you guys and NDOT worked with me on was the entrance ramps from DeMonte Ranch Road onto 395 or I-580 going north.
Right.
From DeMonte Ranch and also from South Meadows.
Mhm.
And restriped and changed the timing so that we could have 2 lanes turning. It used to be one had to stop, you know, the way the lights were, and there was a pork chop. And it was really challenging. So that was a huge improvement. I mean, that was one of our, well, I'll call it early start projects.
Mhm.
In fact, back in 2018, we did that project, actually.
yes. I remember
And,
that.
yeah, and what we were benefited by the fact too, that a number of your staff live in South Meadows and they experienced it daily too.
Mhm.
And they kept saying, can we do something? Can we do so? So we had it from external from me and internal from your own staff, and we got it done. Well, similarly, I've had so many comments, questions, and experienced it myself, trying to merge from DeMonte Ranch Road over onto Steamboat. So that, as I recall, there's a light there, but there's no place to really go straight on DeMonte Ranch Road. Remind us.
Yes, so right now, the current situation with that intersection is if you live on the east side of Steamboat or Rio Wrangler, that everyone fights to get into that left turn lane. And there's 2 through lanes going southbound that leads to nowhere.
Correct.
So what we're gonna do as part of this project is reconfigure that so that we have better lane utilization, so people don't have to fight or weave over to get to that single lane, and they can utilize more lanes in order to get to the left turn pockets.
Yeah.
Edward, would you like to go into your presentation?
Oh, yeah.
That would be
Yeah,
lovely.
I
Thank you
think
so
so.
much.
Nice segue.
Thank you. I'm like, we
I
love
was gonna say
pictures.
too, we need
We
pictures.
need pictures.
But anyway, I just have to say though, I'm extremely proud. I am,
I
ex-
got all this animated, so.
I
I
am
love it.
extremely proud that, to work with you guys on all of the public meetings and the fact that you are doing this and, you know, to jump to the end, you're planning construction this calendar year. That's what I,
Absolutely. Well,
to start.
So I guess we'll thank everyone for attending the Steamboat presentation. And I know this is a much needed project to alleviate some of the traffic concerns and issues that have been going on around the Damani Ranch area. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So project background. So as you all know that the Damani Ranch community has experienced significant growth in the last few years and continues to grow. So this project is identified, as Naomi mentioned, in the South Meadows Multimodal Transportation Study that was done back in April of 2020. And this has been identified as a high priority project. And the purpose of this project is to improve safety, improve travel times for commuters to and from on Damani Ranch to the I-580 freeway. Okay. So let's look at the project scope. There's 4 areas of focus that I would like to talk about. The first area being, we are going to widen the intersection of Steamboat and Veterans Parkway. You can see that it's circled right here in the green. Okay, that's Veterans. There's Steamboat right there. Okay. And then area 2, we will widen Steamboat Parkway from 4 lanes. Currently, there's 2 lanes in each direction, and we're going to add another lane in each direction. So that area will be widened out to 6 lanes. And then area 3, as I just talked about, we're going to reconfigure the southbound lanes right here from the Damani Ranch to go east on Steamboat. So we're going to have better lane utilization for those left turn pockets. And then finally, area 4, which is a minor one, we're going to remove the flashing yellow arrow here at this intersection due to safety concerns and the speeds that are going this way. So that's going to be adjusted here. Okay. So let's take a closer look. Area 1, the highlights. So as again, we're going to look at this intersection. So let's go ahead and zoom in and see what's going on here. So as you recall, this is going northbound. This is going southbound, eastbound, and this is westbound. And this is eastbound, as you can see that it's a single lane going eastbound. So that's always a headache in the evening time, as some of you are aware. So what are we going to do here? So going eastbound, we're going to add an additional through lane. So instead of 1 lane, there's going to be 2 lanes. And this is what's going to look like. We're going to have the left turn lane. We're going to have 2 through lanes instead of 1 now. And we're going to maintain this right lane and the bicycle lane going through. Okay. What about going westbound? We're going to add additional right turn pocket. So just like on the eastbound right side, we're going to add 1 on the westbound side too. Maintain the 2 new lanes and the left turn lane. Going northbound, we're going to add an additional left turn lane. So right now, it's a single northbound left turn lane. Traffic's all backed up. So we're going to alleviate that by adding another left turn lane, maintain the 2 through lanes, and add another right turn pocket to go east. And finally, southbound. We can go ahead and add an additional left turn lane to alleviate some of the traffic going east towards the Damani Ranch High School, because traffic there is pretty bad in the morning time trying to get to school. Okay, so this is what it looks like right now. And then here's a rendering of what's going to look like afterwards. You're going to have your 2 through lanes going eastbound, 2 left turn lanes from the south to go west towards the freeway, 2 southbound left turn lanes to go east, and then you're going to add another right turn pocket for the westbound side. Okay. All right, so that is area 1 of focus. Let's look at area 2. So area 2 is focusing the widening between Marketplace and Veterans Parkway on Steamboat. So let's take a closer look here. Okay. So now, okay, so we're going to add an additional through lane for the eastbound and westbound direction. So instead of 2, we're going to have 3. Okay. What's next? We're going to extend this east to north turn pocket. We know that there's a lot of cars trying to make this left to go north on Veterans, and some cars get stuck and they can't make to the left turn pocket, the green will shut off and then the queue will start falling back again. So we're gonna add more storage right here for cars to queue up to make that left. And then lastly, per request of RFD, we are gonna widen this intersection so that their trucks have a better turning radius in and out so that they are more effective at responding to emergency calls. Okay. Okay, so this is before. Get the 2 lanes in both directions. We have this turn lane, right? You're in this lane, you can turn to the right, and then this is what's gonna look like after. 3 through lanes going west, 3 through lanes going east, where the last the right lane will become a right turn pocket to go south on Veterans Parkway. All right, area 3. Let's look at the Monty Ranch and Steamboat intersection. This is what it looks like right now. So how are we going to fix this? We're going to reconfigure the south to east movement for better efficiency and lane utilization for drivers. So currently, all the drivers are trying to get into that left turn lane, right? Trying to get to, they're all in this left turn lane just to get into this left turn pocket. So how are we going to fix that? We're going to restripe it. So now the lanes are going to be divided up a little bit better so that if you're in the left turn lane, it will lead you into that far left turn lane so you can be in better position for this turn lane, this eastbound through lane, excuse me. And then what about the middle lane? So the middle lane, you're gonna come down and then you're gonna have a decision or a choice to get into this other left turn lane to be in the middle lane going east, or you're gonna be in the outside lane to either go through or have the option to make the left into the far right lane to go east.
So you'll have 3 turning.
Essentially, yes, yes,
And do you have 3 turning now or just 2?
just 2. So this lane right here currently is just a through, and we're gonna reconfigure it as a through and left turn shared.
Oh.
Okay, and lastly,
Okay, so what do you want?
the far right lane on the Monty will just lead into this far right lane to go south. All right.
What do you expect to be south? Is there gonna be more development over there?
That's what I've heard. I've heard in the future that Rio Wrangler was slated to expand westward and it connected to the Monty. But that's, I believe, in the next 10 or 15 years. I'm not exactly sure, but that's what is being planned for. So eventually, yes, there will be developments in the future in that area as well.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So here we have before. And let's look at the after. So far left lane, will just force you to be in this left turn lane, to be in the far left lane. The middle lane will give you an option to be in the middle left lane to go in the middle lane to go east. And then, or you have a choice to go into the far left lane to be on the far right lane to go east. So we have some landscape renderings. So I believe landscape is one of the main things that we're going to try to maintain with the widening this project. So as you can see that this is a sample rendering of this area. Supposed to scroll up. There we go, there it goes. So this is RC Willie. So all this area, the trees, new trees will be planted. Whatever trees we take out, we're gonna put back the same amount of trees that we have. And we've been in contact with the Monty Ranch HOA to discuss what's the best type tree and the soil conditions that we're experiencing out there. So that way we can make sure that it still has the same aesthetics and looks the same in the corridor. Here's Steamboat, and here is Veterans. You see all the trees being planted. Okay. Here's a close-up look. This is going northbound on Veterans. This is the left turn pockets to go west on Steamboat. And then here's the southbound approach. Here's the left turns to go east on Steamboat. Okay. And then here's a close-up view of the intersection of Steamboat and Veterans. see that there's the trees being planted on all sides, all four sides of the corners. Next up, and then here is more renderings of Steamboat, along Steamboat between Marketplace and Veterans. Also note too that we're gonna be adding more lighting to Steamboat, so that way we can get the lighting levels up to par for what the city recommends. So that way it's a little bit more safer traversing this corridor. Here's a sample rendering of what Steamboat's gonna look like. You're gonna have landscaping on the sides, and you're gonna have these acorn style lighting behind the back of the sidewalk. So, all right, may change, but this is what our goal is. So with that, our project schedule is we're still under design, and we hope to be complete with the design of the project sometime in September 2020, September of this year. We hope to begin construction sometime maybe in late October or early November. And we hope that construction will take about 6 months and conclude sometime in the spring next year. And then after everything's all said and done, we will go back and retime all the signals. That way, in the morning, if you're on the Damati side, we can get you to the freeway faster, and then vice versa in the PM, get you back to home from the freeway as soon as possible. But as always, schedule may change, so this is tentative right now, but this is our goal. With that, that concludes our presentation on the Steamboat project, and if there's any question, we'll leave the floor to you guys. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was wondering, are you gonna have no right turn on red to protect the pedestrians from crossing?
No, because essentially we're gonna still have the pet heads. So if the drivers will still have to yield to pedestrians that are crossing, but that's something we can look into if we want to include. If there's a pedestrian that wants to cross, we can make it so that the right turn is prohibited while they cross. So that's something. Let me put notes down, see if that we can look into that.
Mara?
So just on your last slide, you had that the completion is supposed to be in the spring, summer of 2022, and I think you made 2023.
Thank you. That's a typo right there.
And then also my question is, while you're doing all of this, it's really just the roads that you're relining, right? You're just putting line, you're not gonna take away any of the sidewalk or change any of the width of those roads. You're just redirecting them. Am I correct?
No, so we are gonna widen the road, but we're gonna still maintain the sidewalk. So essentially we're widening it. We're gonna still keep the sidewalks and any landscaping if possible. So the landscaping is gonna be narrowed a little bit, but we'll still maintain the sidewalks.
Do you reconstruct the sidewalk or are you keeping the same sidewalk that's there?
We're gonna have to reconstruct it with the wide.
Okay, so I think Mara, that's the answer is
Okay.
to rebuild the sidewalk.
Okay.
Patrick?
Yeah, this route has become very popular with cyclists transferring from the north part of town to the south part of town. And I'm curious, there was no mention made of any improvements on the bike lanes for this project.
So right now, we're gonna still maintain the bicycle lanes that are currently out there. I believe in the RTP that in the future, it may be upgraded to a multimodal. But at this time, the scope of this project is to maintain the bicycle lanes as it is out there right now.
What do you mean by multimodal?
I believe, I think cycle track or something like that in the future.
A separate bike lane?
Yes, yes. But it's still within next couple of years.
I guess the question would be if you're reconstructing a whole sidewalk, wouldn't this be the good time to add that bike lane, you know, or whatever you're considering, or no? Like you're having to take down the curb, the sidewalk, the landscape. Should this be planned now, even if you don't put in the barrier for the bikes?
So the problem is we would have to do it on one side based on the right of way, right? And the problem that we're talking about is if we have a cycle track or something like that on one side, at the end of it, where would they go? It would terminate at Veterans Steamboat. So cyclists would have to go in a different direction in order to get back to the bicycle lanes downstream from the intersections.
So we did look at a multimodal or consolidating the bicycles to one side of the road. And like he said, this widening is only for a short place between Marketplace and Veterans. And everything all around it is connecting into the bike path. So you're going to be forcing people to cross the street, to go to a multimodal, to get off of the street for an area that's only a quarter mile long. So to maintain the consistency and everything, we kept the bicycle lanes as they were. So everything kind of ties into the way it is now. Because you've got bicycle lanes on Veterans going north and south, and bicycle lanes coming east and west off of there. So that all ties and it kind of keeps everything continuous and maintains the continuity of the traffic patterns that we currently have.
Absolutely.
Last question.
Yes.
Is the construction gonna be during the day, or can they be doing most of the expansion during the evening hours?
So we're gonna try to limit the construction during daytime, but there will be construction sometime during the nighttime because there's a lot of utilities that need to be located. And specifically NV Energy, there's a lot of transformer along Steamboat that needs to be relocated. So there might be construction at night because you have Safeway and RC Willey, and that's during the closing hours. So sometimes the power needs to be shut in order for that work to be completed. So that way it does not disturb their business during the daytime.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
Okay, Jack, go ahead.
Thank you, Mimi. Amazing presentation. I loved the before and after. It was like a home renovation. It was very nice. We don't see that often at the NAB meetings. First off, thank you, Naomi. Thank you, RTC. This is amazing. I think Mara and I share and rejoice as we've commuted to Damani several times in the mornings, and this is amazing. Definitely gonna have a lot more happy commuters, I would say, from South Reno. I do have a couple of questions. In area 1, I know we just talked about the sidewalks. How are we mitigating, because there's a new elementary school that's just going to be placed in there, Jaywood Raw, I believe. Damani Ranch is right there. A lot of kiddos walk to school. How is their mitigation efforts in terms of, I know we're taking off the sidewalks, and it sounds like we're moving the bike lanes. Is it just going to be one side of the road like y'all are doing at Peckham? If you can walk me through that, that'd be awesome.
I believe that's what we're gonna try to at least maintain some pedestrian access during construction. We're not gonna try to eliminate everything so no one can get to and from
Right.
Between Veterans and Marketplace.
Okay, perfect. And then the other question I had in area 3. So how many lanes total are going into Damani Ranch? Are going straight?
Are going straight into there's gonna be 2 lanes. So essentially, let me I don't know if you can pull up that slide again. I can show you. It will be slide number 12.
It's not showing, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just give me 1 second. Okay.
No, I mean, it's not showing on the Zoom.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything, sorry.
Sorry for all the
Yeah, you gotta go through all the animations.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
So it's actually like 36 slides.
Okay, there we go. So we're essentially trying to make better use of the existing.
I can't see anything, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
It's coming, drum roll.
Perfect, I see something.
Okay, so essentially, we're trying not to change too much at this intersection. We're trying to utilize what we have out there, so that way it will maximize our budget. So essentially, there's gonna be 2 through lanes going southbound. So from the inside, we have a left turn lane that's gonna lead into the far left, eastbound lane on Steamboat. And then from the middle lane, from Damani, you're gonna have an option to get into this middle left turn lane or the far right left turn lane and shared through lane. So this lane will give you the option to go through or put you into the far right eastbound through lane.
Okay, I just asked because I know I'm well aware that there are developments going in place right off of Damani Ranch. I would hate for us to have to, but it looks like 2 lanes are sufficient. I was just worried that there was only going to be 1 lane And I know, and I believe several apartment complexes are going right over there by the original Damani Ranch. So
Absolutely, yeah.
perfect. That's all I have.
Gotcha. Thank you. I do have, oh, excuse me. Go right ahead.
Thank you for all of this detail. It's really awesome. From my perspective, it looks like it opens up the flow, and that is definitely an issue because that's been the biggest crash concerns lately. But my biggest concern in that area is the speed issues. And we've addressed that now with RTC specifically for over 4 years since they've been talking about veterans through the city and so on. So what are your plans for reducing of the speed in these areas? Because if we're going to open up the flow and make it easier to flow, we certainly need to be looking at the 70-mile-an-hour traffic drivers that go through there.
Right.
Sooner than later, because we are increasing, as they said, the apartments, which typically does have children, typically will have bigger traffic concerns. So I'd be concerned about the fatality rate going up in those areas, and we already have a pretty high fatality rate in that area.
I mean, it's a tough answer. It's one of the things with the speeding is part of it, it's hard to control people's behavior. I mean, we could totally narrow the lanes down to increase that visual friction so drivers slow down. But at the same time, if drivers can't get to the destination faster, they're more likely to take risks. So that might decrease traffic safety. And they might increase their speed that way because as you see right now, it's so hard to get through the intersection. So they're speeding, they're impatient. So we hope that by alleviating some of the congestion there, drivers would be a little more relaxed and they're not gonna have to wait in traffic longer so that way they don't increase their frustration to go faster.
And Nick,
It's a tough answer. Yeah.
could you let Khalil Wilson, is he here? He's on
Khalil
the,
is on, he had a family emergency and I'll have to relay any comments.
and is there anyone else?
No, Khalil was the person.
Okay.
Then he had a family.
Because I asked a person from City Public Works Road to be on this meeting in case a question came up like that. But it sounds like he has left us.
A lot of the accidents that I've been hearing is at Steamboat and Veterans with the flashing yellow arrows. With the increase of traffic, drivers don't have that good sense to make that left on a yielding condition. So as part of this project, we're removing that so that's all protected lefts, including at Steamboat and Marketplace. So hopefully that will alleviate some of the crashes that happen. So that way drivers aren't making risky maneuvers yielding because some drivers aren't, I guess, visually.
I guess the question is where you're taking out the flashing yellow, is that going to be a traffic light?
No, it's still gonna be a traffic light. It's just gonna be, instead of the 4 section like you normally see, you have the green, flashing yellow, yellow, red. It's just gonna be the 3, green, yellow, red.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Is there, I know that Naomi started a traffic safety study in that area. It's been heavily requested from all of us in the community for a while. Do we have any statistics on that?
I think they're going to report on that in about 3 weeks at the next Wild Horse Public Workshop on May 16th. That's my understanding.
I would just ask that somehow we at least keep the loss of light as the
Yeah.
highest priority in that area.
Right.
I understand you like the idea of the flow through, and I think it looks beautiful and from someone who doesn't like to get stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of doing this, but I would tell you that my highest concern.
So we will have another public meeting on this, a bigger meeting. So our team has collected some crash data. So at that meeting, we can share you some of the results that we have discovered.
Andrew, when are we looking for from that meeting?
Talking
Just
to.
generally.
Probably June timeframe.
June?
Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, Khalil's back.
Okay, so I think this is an important point, and I think you had said you were gonna ask about this, Mimi. You know, we
Yes.
want to make sure that we do this kind of presentation, but down in South Reno.
Right.
Where the project's to take place, where more people could attend, and also different kind of questions will probably come up.
Right.
So maybe end of June or early July is what you're thinking, or something like that?
Yeah, sometime around the timeframe.
Sounds great.
Is there a specific venue that we?
We will work with you on that. Why don't we will get with Nick, and we have 2 options, and we'll try to gauge the size of the group. We could do it back at Damani Ranch High School, or we could use the South Valley's Library. And if neither of those are available in the right timeframes, we could even reach out to Tamarack. They have some meeting rooms. I don't know if they're the right size, but we definitely have to bring all this equipment. But we will work with you on a venue. I know you did it before at Damani Ranch and it worked out great, but we didn't do hybrid at the time.
I got you. Okay.
Real quick, would June, July be enough time to still amend the design based on the feedback there, or did it be locked in then?
You should be able to, if, as long as nothing too major, but I think.
So it would be approximately 90% design and that is taken.
Yeah.
Where's that right now, 70?
Yeah, we had 50%. What you saw was kind of our 50% plans.
Okay.
So, and we just finished up 50% landscape aesthetics. And so we're right now working towards the 90%.
So 90 will be the next milestone?
Yes.
Yes.
And when would 90 be?
In that June, July timeframe.
Okay, do you want to have this before that? I mean, that's your point, right?
Oh, okay.
End of May.
End of May?
End of May. Okay, yeah, we can try.
Why don't we work with you on that? I see some open dates like the 24th and 26th of May. Those are about the biggest ones I see. That's towards the end of May, but it's before you maybe complete your June, July.
Okay.
I don't know if those sound good to you guys, but.
Okay.
Or maybe, maybe even after the first, we'll avoid Memorial Day.
Avoid what?
Memorial Day.
Let me see.
We're gonna be out of town for the first camping trip of the year.
When is Memorial Weekend, the 28th and 29th this year?
30th.
Yeah. Well, the 30th is a Monday, so the 28th, 29th, 30.
Yeah.
So I was suggesting before that, like the 24th or 26th.
I think that'd be better, yeah, because I will be gone the week of Memorial Week.
Yeah. So another idea would, if you really wanted to push it up, but we have a Virginia Range public hearing on the 16th, which is of great interest to South Reno as well.
Right.
And so I was just saying maybe the following week when, we can only do so much.
Yeah.
Right? All of us. But it's just an idea.
Or is this something to pull into that one, or would that be too much?
What's that?
Would it be something to pull into the
Piggyback.
Virginia Range discussion, or would that be too much?
I haven't connected with how much material they're presenting. That's another great idea.
I would love to see it that way.
That one's a full
Yeah.
Zoom. It's not in a place. How do you think people would be about that?
I would rather be in person, but I do believe in most of our conversations in South Reno, the horse issue and the street traffic safety issue are a combined safety issue for the community. They're not unique. They're both absolutely.
Well, what if I reach out tomorrow and see where there are on the planning of the 16th? And see if there's a 2-hour slot where maybe that an hour is for the horses and an hour for this, something like that.
On the 16th, you said?
Yeah, we already have it set up and we have a time. We have Virginia Range Horse second meeting. I have the time blocked from 5 to 8, but I don't know what final time they had.
Okay, and where's this at again?
It's on Zoom.
Oh, all Zoom, okay.
Solves the problem of the where, but but people can ask questions and, it's an interactive Zoom.
Absolutely. And we'll tweak this presentation to include some of the safety aspects that.
Yes, we see you, Khalil. Did you want to speak?
Like a bug.
Oh, about.
Sorry about that. I was just waving the kids to be quiet. Sorry about that.
Well, Khalil, we're so glad that you're back on. We did have a question about the speed. We had a question about will the speed be reduced when the traffic lanes increase? And so Andrew had made some comments about, the thoughts on what the speed limit will be with the increase of the lanes. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that we'll probably end up having to get our traffic engineer to do that. The posted speed limits are, sort of based on the capacity of the roadway in order to make sure that traffic can move through that area. But I think we were working with RTC. We might want to get a determination from them if we reduce speeds through that area.
Okay, so that's a big maybe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that would be part of our discussions that we're saying we're going to do a public meeting to discuss it.
Right, we'll either combine it with the horse meeting if there's enough time, or we'll set a separate one potentially the next week. Okay.
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 Do we have any other questions for Andrew and the team? Anybody in the audience today? No? Okay. Well, with that,
Thank you for all that work. That's a lot.
that was
It's amazing.
Thank you.
great
I look
news.
forward to
And
working on this project
Yeah.
with you all
So
of you.
it's so exciting.
it's great. Thank you. No, it's much needed. And I know that our folks that live out in that area are forever grateful because everybody's tired of spending 3 days in the turn lane trying to, get home in the evening.
Yeah, my mom lives in that area. She complains about it all the time.
Does she?
I gotta do something about it.
See, I told you it's helpful to have people in South Reno working in RTC.
Yeah.
Or friends or family of
yes.
somebody in RTC.
For sure. Nick, I see we have some comments over there on the side. Is that anything we need to answer or
I think it was addressed by the speed limit comment, but. Can
Okay.
you read that?
barely?
No.
It's like an eye test.
We have a big problem with the amount of traffic on veterans, cars and big rigs driving on veterans starting at 4 AM and they run all day and night. Can the speed limit be reduced for cars or lower more for the rigs? This right now it's 45, but everybody goes 55.
On veterans. Okay. So that sounds like it's a speed issue on veterans.
Yes, I think it's been.
So this has been discussed extensively at our Wild Horse meetings. And I will tell you, and I think it's Delina has a pretty interesting idea. I think there are two issues here. One is the speed. And one of the things that I've even talked to the staff about, I'll just daylight it here, is that most of the accidents with horse versus all, there were 25 in the last 3 years, 17 in this last year, were at night. And, it's something for Khalil at the city and you at RTC to think about. Would it be worth it having a different day and night speed? So that is a different kind of an idea. And it might really help everyone without unduly slowing down people, but still deal with the safety issue, which is literally every accident was at night.
Right.
The horses are dark, it's a dark skies area. Every accident's been at night, not every car accident, but
Right,
every
right.
horse accident. So that's one issue. And the second issue is her question about big rigs. And I brought this up with our, Khalil, you may not know this, but I brought this up with John Plansburg and with the folks that work in traffic. Because actually I gotta give Jennifer the credit. She brought to my attention that the MapQuest, if we'll use that term, the Google Maps are directing people down Veterans as a faster way to get to I-80. Right? Do you want to just speak to this quickly since you're more?
Anytime that you put in for GPS, whatever GPS choice you have on your phone,
Right.
takes you from the freeway to get off the freeway to go down Veterans Parkway, speed through Veterans Parkway, roaming around 55 to 70 mile an hour range
Almost
like
back to the
freeway going to Sparks. So this is a heavy traffic area for commercial vehicles. And the problem is that if a commercial vehicle chooses to stay on the freeway to avoid causing a loss of life, they actually get written up or get fired for doing that for their job. Because if you know anything about any form of transportation, they are specifically told which way they go, which is the most effective and efficient route. So it is absolutely the new most efficient and effective route for commercial vehicles to drive through.
Avoiding spaghetti bowl.
So as I'm sharing multiple times, we need to take much more consideration of loss of light because we have over 1,000 new units coming into that area alone already. And we have 70 mile an hour impacts, which are costing lives. And I don't, we can discuss horses all we want, but this is a much bigger issue than that. And if we're opening up more freedom to roam in that area, we are opening up more freedom to go faster and have more traffic issues and many more loss of life by doing this. So I'm just asking if you can at least take a look at what I've presented and given to the
Absolutely.
city and understand that this is a very big issue in the community. We don't want to see any more loss of any lives. It doesn't matter what type of life it is. We just want everyone safe.
Okay.
And for you,
I
Khalil,
love the idea of the flow through. Believe me, I'm a huge fan. But we have a much bigger issue, which is we have more commercial traffic in that area than any other residential zone I've seen. I'm not sure, maybe Plum Lane still has that much traffic, but I'm not sure. So it really needs to be addressed that we get that commercial vehicle traffic off that area. And I don't know how any other way you do it besides what I explained was we have to drop that speed limit long enough for GPS to stop sending them through there. But if we're going to open it up and make it easier to flow through there, we're doing the exact opposite. So I'm just concerned, and I'm not an expert, so I'm bringing the issue to you guys as the experts to say, can you take one more look at that? Because I love what I'm seeing. And we all out there in that area would love to see that, but we also don't want to see loss of life.
And one more thing, Khalil, when they did the traffic study, you know, they conducted it, I don't know, a month or two ago with the things you drive over. I don't know what they're called. But they said that they did not, it also measures axle distance, and they said they did not see the big truck traffic that Jennifer's speaking of. Maybe they didn't test at the right time. Maybe we should do another test. And I'm saying this to the RTC guys too, is that we did a recent speed test. I don't have the data, but it would be worth it for you guys to talk. And also, if you're not seeing, you know, this is anecdotal, that's data on a road. If you're not seeing it, then let's figure out where's the difference, you know?
Okay, no, we'll definitely look into that. And our next public meeting, hopefully we can have time to talk about it and give you guys a better result and answer to this.
Yeah, and it's not just an axle conversation. You have to actually see the vehicles with the logos on it. So you really have to be there to see it. So whatever you have to do to get a camera on that, probably.
Maybe some visualization. Khalil, is what they're saying.
Is this the traffic, the speed study that we did on,
Yes.
on veterans?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So we probably should wrap up because there's
Yep.
3 projects to get through tonight before 8:30. I'm trying to be mama right now, but only because we're gonna have a second meeting, which is fantastic. And a lot of things have been brought up here on the Zoom, on the comments and in the audience. And so food for thought.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you for your time.
Mind if I share? Okay, I'll let it.
Okay,
Sorry.
Oh,
thank you. I wanted to make sure somebody was asking for your name. So you got that, Nick? Are you putting it down?
Yeah, I
Okay.
just sent it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, so much.
Absolutely.
Great
You're welcome.
presentation. Thank you for the information and for indulging all our questions and conversation here. Obviously, a big concern of our ward. And so we appreciate that you guys are moving out that. And thank you for agreeing to do a public meeting.
Absolutely.
It's really important to involve our citizens down there in the south for them to be able to see this great information and keep them apprised of what's happening as well.
Absolutely. I'll leave my business cards for anyone who's
Okay.
interested right here. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me.
Great, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
We're gonna go into our development projects. The first one's going to be B51 Marvel Way Abandonment, ABN 220007. A request has been made for the abandonment of 1 Home Gardens Drive located between South McCarran Boulevard and Airway Drive, 2, a portion of Marvel Way located between Airway Drive and Home Gardens Drive, and 3, a 20-foot wide alley located at the northeast corner of Airway Drive and Home Gardens Drive. The abandonment is an area 40 feet wide and 3 acres in size and is located within the mixed-use airport MA zoning district and has a master plan land use designation of mixed employment ME. Hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Carrie Rohrmeyer. I'm here on behalf of the applicant this evening.
Andrew, sorry, would you mind waiting outside for the last?
Outside?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Okay, Carrie, go right ahead. Thank you
Sorry
so much.
No, thank you. Yes, happy to be here. I'm hoping you find this a relatively simple request based on what I'm presenting tonight. This is just a road abandonment. This is the area just south of the Reno Tahoe Airport runway. Feel free to go to the next slide and have a clicker there. We aren't proposing a project at this point. That is still in the design phase. We're just here to ask for an abandonment or present abandonment. Okay, that way. Okay, so Home Gardens Drive is between South McCarran Boulevard and Airway Drive. So that is the main road for abandonment. And then there's also the continuation of Marvel Way where it meets Airway.
But can you point those out? Because we don't know where those are.
Okay.
And I know the people on the Zoom cannot see the pointer, and I don't know, Nick, if you can help us with that.
Yeah, so yeah, there you go, Nick. That's the best bet. So right down this triangular piece, you see these gray lines that are on Google Earth. So Home Gardens is the longitudinal road, and Marvel Way is the one that bisects. Now, I want to point out that this.
Can you put your red and then he can put the white?
Okay.
Which one is McCarran?
McCarran is to the north.
Okay.
That's South McCarran.
Okay,
Airway Center is here to the west. And then we're only talking about the 3 parcels that are vacant.
Can you do your pointer and then he can do, so they can see on the line?
Okay, makes a nice little triangle here.
And that one that you're pointing at was Marble?
The marble is the one that runs
Oh,
horizontally
and
from,
the other on the diagonals, Home Gardens?
yes, that's correct.
Who owns that parcel?
The Reno Tahoe Airport owns this land,
That's what I thought.
and they have a lease agreement with Tolls Development Corporation.
Okay.
So there isn't a project, but the RFP went out in 2012 for development at this site. If you remember, long back in the 90s, there were housing here. We got a grant from the government to remove the houses due to noise mitigation, airport housing not being a very compatible use. So thinking about what the future could look like, I just want to point out that these roads have sat here unused. They only serve these 3 parcels in the interior. They don't, in fact, serve any access to the neighboring parcels. So we don't have a full development plan to present, but I will say that any new project will provide entirely new circulation within the site. By doing this abandonment, it allows for consolidation. It allows for opportunities for better utilization of this very core location, which is in line with the Reno Tahoe Airport Plan. It's in line with the City of Reno's 2021 Land Use Code update, where the site was rezoned to mixed use airport. And it's also very much supports the master plan of mixed employment. So some sort of distribution, looking at light industrial and a mix of commercial along this area. And understanding that this is what it looks like today. We have roads that are gated off. They are not being used. And then we have roads that are in fact in disrepair. They don't serve anybody in terms of vehicular access. We understand that there is actually some pedestrian use along, there's a creek that runs along the rear here. That will be improved with any future development, including some picnic benches and complete public access along that creek.
Could you go back to that previous and just show us where that might be?
Sure, that's along the eastern boundary.
So where do you think these picnic benches would be?
We're talking, or what I've heard is at each terminus, maybe a few picnic benches, some sort of public amenity at this location. And in hearing the concerns and preferences for trees, we understand that there are trees on site. Any future development would be more than doubling the number of trees that are there today. And with mindfulness about attracting, not attracting bird species that could potentially create airstrikes for the airport. It was in the news recently that Reno Tahoe Airport has some concerns about airbird strikes. So 396 new trees in the location and species that will be working with the City of Reno Planning, the urban forester, to ensure that the species are not attracting the avian species that create incompatibilities with the airport.
Do you know, like I did ask Matt, our urban forester, were there certain kind of trees that attracted certain kind of birds, and he wasn't really that aware of it? Do you have some knowledge of that?
Yeah, and speaking with the RTA and with the FAA, there are species that are less attractive to birds. Right now, there are a lot of cottonwoods on the site, but there are species that do not attract the same sort of larger wildlife that would pose incompatibilities. So and also the placement of the trees, new trees would be around the perimeters of the buildings. So a little less convenient for where the, takeoff and landing corridors are.
And one more question.
Sure.
This land, if you go back to a different view of more today's view or that, or one of the other views, my understanding is or you just tell us, my understanding was it was bought for noise mitigation or potentially crashing planes, or I don't know what you call that, but.
It was purchased for noise mitigation because residential housing was located there. Light industrial distribution has a very low employee count. In fact, it's somewhere in the range of 25 persons per acre per hour. And this location would be part of the FAA agreement and review process. So it'll be a low human employee count. So that is the kind of safety and appropriate use that belongs next to an airport. It also opens up opportunities for air cargo, which is a great thing for economic development. and its placement right next to the airport is just so sensible. So in terms of meeting a lot of the sort of goals of the master plan, and particularly for this regional plan, I think regional center, it's a really good fit.
Did you say though that the FAA changed, or not you, but I've talked to other people at the airport, did they change their regulations, FAA, on noise and what could be in the flight path and stuff like that?
You know, that is not a question I have an answer for,
Oh.
but I am coming to city council on May 11th, so I will certainly look that up.
Okay.
I don't know the FAA's
I
noise
think
mitigation.
Tina, if Tigger told me that.
Okay.
So maybe you could check with her.
Absolutely.
She seemed to say that the south end of the property was available for development, but more recently FAA changed their rules and for this kind of property. So that would be good information to have. You know, like you said, an RFP was out since 2012. Well, that's what, 10 years ago?
10 years.
I don't know what's happened in that time.
Well, it changed hands. There were some issues about lease agreements with the land. That is solidified now. There are, you know, it's a design process going forward. That would comply, by the way, completely with the land development code. It won't be triggering any entitlements. So the goal is really to create the right project for this location. But I will look up the noise standards. with
Well, the
FAA.
noise or what FAA said you could have in a flight path.
Yeah.
I thought it had to do with the crashing and the birds,
Okay.
but maybe it had to do with the noise.
Will do. But today we're just talking about the abandonment at this phase of the project. Really just, you know, abandoning these roads allows the project or parcels to be consolidated and redeveloped. Any questions from Arnab?
Any questions from our Zoom folks? Anything? Do you see anything? Any hands? No?
Jump in just really quick. Once again, Brooke Oswald, Associate Planner for the record. This is abandonment, so this does go straight to City Council. I don't know if you have an anticipated date,
May 11th
May 11th.
in the daytime.
And then, yep, and so it does go straight to City Council, as I stated. There is one finding that the public will not be materially harmed in that. Staff generally, Grace Whiten is the planner on this. If you have additional questions or concerns or comments, please direct them to her, and then any comments you have tonight, we'll make sure they're included in the record. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
Yes, seems kind of silly, but I remember when that was a neighborhood and I lived here, and if I had to do with the community noise thing because of the noise, but even before that, new runways were going to come this way, they were going to create more noise, so they had to buy out all these people and move them off property. So are those streets still belong to the city? Is that
Yes.
what the problem is? The city is still the owner of the street that buys that parcel that can't be developed.
That's exactly right. Perfect understanding.
Thank you.
Correct, and as I understand it, those were dedicated, when that neighborhood was developed, those streets were dedicated to the city at that, for that, to facilitate that residential development. Now they're asking for those to be dedicated back to those adjacent parcels.
Do you see anybody online that has questions? No?
No, the answer is.
Okay, Carrie, thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time, for the great presentation. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Moving on to our next development project, Canyons Edge, LDC 21-00034. A request has been made for an amendment to the master plan land use designation from an 80.22 unincorporated transition UT to 14 acre of single family and 66.22 acres of parks, greenways and open space, and 2, a zoning map amendment from unincorporated transition 1 dwelling per unit for 40 acres, UT 40, to the Canyons Planned Unit Development, PUD Canyons. The 80.22 acre site is located approximately 1,400 feet east of the eastern terminus of Mineshaft Drive.
Thank you, madam.
Hello, John.
Hello.
Welcome this evening.
Thank
How
you very
lovely
much.
to see you again.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. And if this looks familiar, it should look familiar. If you've been around the NAB for a while, we're adding the zoning to the master plan. I'll go into that. I will be brief. And how did that pointer work? I was a little confused. There was a white one and a pink.
So the white one was run by Nick so
Nick.
that the people online can see it. And the
Okay.
red one is run by you and we can see that.
Okay, so you
So
prefer,
you could use his pointer.
you tell me, I'm not the boss.
No, you're the boss of you.
Okay,
So
thank you. I'll just go with this one. And if there's a white preference, I'll be glad to do that. As Madam Chair introduced me, I'm at the bottom of the screen. John Munson's not here. He's our civil engineer. But most importantly, the developer and manager, Jim Dolan of the Virginia 40s. And his Uncle Tom, you know him around town. He's a notorious businessman. He's also involved. The family owns this property. Basically, the introduction was well done by Amy. Zoning map for this 80-acre parcel to PUD. We're basically folding it into an existing PUD that was the Canyons. This is Canyons Edge, what will become Canyons. It basically doubles the size of it, so the density goes down because in 80 acres, we're only adding 6, actually a total of 8 parcels to existing.
So John, before you go further, I think I misunderstood.
Yeah.
So you're here to amend the Canyons PUD?
That is correct.
I didn't understand.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And feel free to interrupt me at any time. I appreciate questions like that as we go. And then located next to the approved canyons in Southeast Reno. So I'll start with big picture. Is this thing not working?
Right.
Thank you. There's the big picture of the entire region, a good regional context that shows the reference point in South Meadows, basically the extension of the school area at Tamani Ranch. There's a little more of zoom of it. You can see the high school and the main network of streets, Life Church, the canyons, and then what we know as Canyons Edge. Again, Canyons Edge today is going to become Canyons PUD upon approval. Palisades is a good reference point too. There's still the tail end of construction of those single family homes that are done by Lennar right in here. Right in here. So I'm sharing this with you. There's the proposed Reno master plan because this is all policy and colors on a map, important stuff. And conveniently, in working with staff, we said, let's bring in the PUD since it's been approved with the master plan. So you see the master plan, that's the existing canyons, the road that spills over into this property, this yellow band on the master plan. The idea, we presented this very map to you late last year. And the idea was to keep very tight controls, regulatory controls of any further expansion of the city. So the best way we figured we could do that rather than like CCNRs and HOA is to do it by way of public control. You put it all in open space. So there is the flat land. I'm going to show you the topo map because it's important so everyone sees how we came to be to establish that.
John, I hate to interrupt your flow, but
No problem.
when you're talking about public open space, but those are all property lines, right?
Those are property lines, but the zoning would actually be open space on those.
Would the
outside of-
people own the property in the open space?
That's right.
Oh, is that something that often individuals own property that's open space?
It's not, but
No.
it was the best way for us to
Okay.
say, put it in public control.
I got you.
Yeah.
Brooke Oswald, Associate the Planner. So we do see open space within the public, owned by the public, but we do have a section of open space and it can be in private.
But could people go on there or is that?
That depends on the agreements that are going to be. So down below on the Canyons PUD, on the main knoll portion in that, there is a pedestrian access agreement and easement across that. And so the public is there. We're currently working through that and we'll determine what's appropriate in this.
I see.
open space.
Key to all of this that city council approved, you see this infrastructure and this infrastructure, there's the tank, there's the road. All we have added, there's no infrastructure being added with the zone change or master plan request. It's just driveways. It's important because of the fiscal study that was done to justify the annexation going back a few years ago. This is all driven by that topo. It's pretty easy on the eyes, easy for us to all embrace where we're putting the driveways, the houses responsibly in the flat areas of the property. The rest is constrained and we put it in open space. And then here's the zoning. So there's existing PUD and there's the proposed, which would be again, canyons, all become Canyons PUD. Here is the conceptual land plan from the approved Canyons PUD. Now notice I'll do to toggle back and forth. I find it so convenient to the eyes when we have the ability to toggle. So you can see again the exact same shape of the blob and the acreage that is related to it. So there's canyons and there's what we're adding in, that blue band, the same shape that's on the zoning map and on the master plan. What we added here too, been working with Brooke as the planner at the city, is this currently was noted as a road that ends at the water, a trail and multi-use trail and access road. And since there's a dirt road that's extending up here, that's a nice public access piece that we've added to that map. So just going back and forth, you can kind of see what's going on there. Again, that is the exact development footprint and roadway and open space as it's been approved in the Canyons PUD.
There's a question from Mara, I think.
Okay,
From Mara, sorry about that, Jack, Mara, they're still with us, and Patrick, is that?
All of them.
Yes.
All of them, okay. Don't see them on the screen here. This is a whole different.
I'm
deal.
here. So I remember you presenting this. I mean, I remember your name in the presentation from last year. So if I'm understanding correctly, you're just trying to expand the property line that you already have, but make it an open space that's going to add 8 more units to the project itself.
The Canyons PUD, right?
Mhm.
Is that
Is
what?
that a yes, John?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to, so you're being creative in how do I expand my property line right now to be able to, and to make it appealing to everybody, is making this public space.
Yeah, I mean, what we thought, and Brooke will have his own perspective on this, but in working with staff, we thought that the best way to manage this, since there's a PUD in place, plan that I've showed you has been around for years already.
Right.
Thought we have the perfect instrument in the existing PUDs to fold in this lot and comply with all of their standards. And just,
Okay, I'm just trying to understand what the difference is that you're presenting. So, okay, thank you.
you know, there's a lot of moving parts, right? The development, before the development plan, the master plan and the zoning.
I have
Sure.
Yeah.
when you move too much farther. There've been so many different versions and pieces of this that we've seen. So didn't we just look at the.
You looked.
To the water tanks.
Oh, okay.
and stuff?
Yeah. Okay,
And
just.
wasn't there an issue about gates and access and going up the hill? And didn't we just have this conversation? I mean.
Okay, so let me, I'm going to try and, so this is one property owner, the Canyons, right? One applicant, one property owner. This is adjacent, okay? See that boundary? And that is the Canyons, what was Canyons Edge, we're now folding it into the Canyons PUD. What has always been the same for the 4 years I've been involved is that band, they're so physically joined at the hip by way of the topography and the infrastructure that we said this makes perfect sense to bring it into the
It makes
PUD.
sense, but that wasn't really my question though.
Okay,
Is it not-
Can I clarify? I think beside these slides, we went through in the NAB meeting, exactly these slides.
So it's not.
And what you saw in the NAB last time was those 2 water tanks, which is, so there's.
I wasn't at that meeting. And so.
Yes, yeah, we did the master plan amendment presentation. I'm sorry, master plan amendment presentation last year. Jack and his project did the presentation, the NAB for just the water tank, which is cutting bills and that stuff.
Right.
Working, and this meeting is just for us to say, hey, look, we're adding that strip that we've already talked about, the master plan amendment, to the PUD. So there are 3 different things, and I hope
It
that.
just sounds confusing because I think what it's worth, at least I did anyway, already kind of got this concept of you have a PUD. I mean, how that works technically is your business, I guess, about the PUD, and then you have
Yeah.
PUD, or you make a new PUD, so then you can make a PUD. I mean, that's.
And then the way,
Technical problem.
yeah, the way this staff looked and the way we did it, is this came in, we looked at, it could have been just zoned, right? It could have had a single family zoning, we could have applied that.
Right.
What we didn't like with that is that now we have 8 homes that are, one, not subject to the HOA, or there's different sharing roadways, the open space, so that provides 8 more homes within that HOA that are bound to that PUD itself. It provides the extra open space of that 80 acres as that brings in Additionally, we also wanted to make sure there was a consistency within that PUD handbook. There's a number of architectural considerations, Virginia range and the interface of fencing. We wanted to make sure that these, as this moves forward, or if this moves forward, that they are under the same constraints of their neighbors. Yeah. Or, and share the same responsibility.
That makes sense to me. And I do recall though, looking at this very map and
That one here, yeah.
that also this one, and the board having a discussion about, okay, the water tanks got amended, got new numbers, and we're gonna do something different, pets and fills are different, we still have a road. There were a lot of discussions about private property being owned and the public use. And so what are you gonna do with this road? And you're gonna cut off horse access, and you're gonna have to keep people safe, but this is really private property owned by whoever buys this big lot. So then you can't just say, we're gonna have, see, there's this existing dirt road that goes across the backside of everybody's private lot, and it's gonna be public access. That's kind of what's hanging me up there about the sales pitch, about the PGO. I'm fine with this being a PG and all the pulled together. I'm not trying to be argumentative about that. But I do recall that we had some discussions, but there's so much green on there, parks, communities, open space, the sales pitches, how that's so good for the community. I think it's great for the community. I think more open space is better. But the question was coming up about the road and the water tanks and the access, whether or not it would be gated, whether the last thing that we heard about the water tanks was it was going to be you could only get to them to service them. And that was it. So I don't know if the water tank piece is your piece or their
I think
piece,
some of
or-
these questions will be answered. There's a couple slides here on fencing.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I jumped
Yeah,
ahead.
well, okay. Yeah, which is cool. And just to preface it by one thing, John, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just to preface it by, we have a meeting tomorrow with Tracy, which had to leave in emergency, Jen, the city to talk about fencing gates in more detail, but we'll give a little
Thank you. I
presentation.
apologize for.
So it's okay. You know, what you're not seeing is all the three-dimensional stuff here. And you're probably wondering, why is that tank on? This is the property I'm representing. Here's the tank, right?
Yeah.
But because of the elevation to get the pressures, that was a use permit by the other property,
Right.
right? Which is this
So
one.
it's
So
confusing.
it is a little confusing, yeah. And you know, it's not a perfect world, shoot, but I wanted to show you this to show this, the zoning in alignment with the master plan.
Well, do you have to get any changes with the master plan or zoning? I'm unclear. You mentioned that.
Yes, that master plan and that zoning are going together.
And they have to go to the planning
Commission and the city council.
Yeah.
And do
maybe
they
I'll
have to
speak-
go to the
I'll speak
Truckee Meadows Regional Plan?
Yeah, let me speak to it really quick and I can speak process. So we accept master plans quarterly, right? So we had the master plan that came in last year, it came in quite a bit of time ago. They could run just the master plan together. What staff recommended is that you run that with a zoning map amendment. And that zoning map amendment is that PUD amendment. That PUD is a zoning. And so we've asked them to amend that, to bring that in. What you will see is one case on this, because what we did is take the zoning map amendment and we put it into the master plan case. So it's one case. So that case will go forward. It will go to Planning Commission. Planning Commission will make a recommendation both on the master plan and on the zoning. They make one for both. Then it will move to City Council. They will make their decision in City Council if they do approve the master plan. And what we do at that time is we link them. So one can't be approved without the other. They have to go together, and then it will go, the master plan will go to regional if approved. And the PUD will go forward for a second reading for approval. Master plan will come back to City Council for certification, but at the same time, we have a handbook that's been modified, and we will certify that handbook again, and then that handbook is filed with the county after that certification.
Maybe you could, that sounded kind of complicated.
Yes.
Perhaps you could like chart this or something.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I'm happy. And so, one thing to be aware of, and I think there's probably at least 5 public hearings this will be going to prior to any approval happening on this. So there's a lot of opportunities to gain additional information, to be part of the process and to get feedback on this.
Is that first PUD not yet approved?
The Canyons PUD is, and so what we have is 80 acres. That's the Canyons PUD. It was approved for 73 homes. What they have done is they're going to modify that. They're adding another 80 acres and 8 homes. So Within that, I think there's maybe 17, 18 acres that are actually for the single family where the homes can be built. And then we have that PGOS. The PGOS not only be, there is the accessibility place. We do have privately owned apartments, greenways, and open space that could be restricted. The public couldn't go in, but what it does is also restricts the uses that can happen.
Right.
So they can't build, and it really starts to limit what can happen on that property.
So a question, I guess, is, has any work been done for the final map for this project?
So they currently have two parcel maps, right? And so they do, so we have a tentative map approved with
Right.
Canyons PUD, right? They have a tentative map sitting there. This applicant has two 40-acre parcels.
Right.
They can divide each of those up to 4 before it would have to go to a tentative map, right? So they could use the parcel map process, so it wouldn't have a tentative map, and subdivide into the 8 parcels.
Right, but my question was on the original PUD,
Yes,
has any work been done to bring it to a final map?
we have not had the final map come forward. I think you're seeing the tank coming forward at that point, and that approval of that tank as it's moved forward, but we do not have a final map.
Because when I talked to staff, this is quite some time ago, you see this, the orientation here is kind of weird because you have east on the bottom, west on the top, north on the right.
On this one map, you're right.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this map. So
Yeah.
the road that's coming from the west top to south bottom. If I recall that there was a developer in there and they said that they would need to build a bridge across the drainage and that
So
wasn't very economic.
There's a property owner, this is confusing now, right? Because we flipped around.
Right.
But I'm gonna just.
Do you want to go to another view?
Yeah, let's go to this.
So, we spoke at one time, is this parcel that's coming in here, the potential roadway that comes up through the tentative map? This is another property here. This is where you would have to come across again, but we do not have any proposal on this. They would have to annex, they would have to do the master plan. We currently don't have that on the property.
Well,
So I
isn't
think
the
that's
pink
where-
already annexed though?
Yes, this is all within the PUD.
Yeah, but what you were pointing at pink saying they're not annexed, so I got
No,
confused.
this parcel here
Oh.
is not annexed. It's outside of the city. And so I think that major drainage runs down this green
Yes,
area
yes.
here and would come here. So for to access this, we did provide the opportunity in the future if they came in, but that would require going across the major drainage way and all of that.
Well, even-
That's where you're speaking.
No, see the black line crossing the green?
Yes, they do have to cross and they have proposed box culverts to go across that area.
Right, but as I recall, in talking to the engineers who were reviewing this, they said that bridge was going to be required, not box culverts.
And that maybe we would see within the final map.
Within the final, and all I asked was, has anything come forward on the final map?
And we have not seen anything.
Okay.
Sorry, that got confusing.
Okay.
I misunderstood where we're going
Okay.
across.
So this is the one map. Let me finish and then we can take any questions. This is the one map that is oriented differently. This is directly from the PUD, so this is the horse fencing. It used to be along the back of the property. Now it includes the back of the houses on this canyon's edge that would become part of the PUD. We're doing some modifications to this, working with staff. Brooke is obviously very engaged with the horse community. Jennifer Baker's here. I understand Tracy Wilson was here. She's one of the advocacy groups. They have expertise. Jim Dolan is also very involved in this. We know and respect it as a real community issue in this area. And so this is in play right now for whatever modifications are right to deal with fencing, to deal with pedestrian crossing, gates, and anything that's related. That's where we're at on this. I just wanted to share that because that's part of the PUD. There's really very few changes at the PUD, but one would be updating this horse fencing plan and everything that goes with it in terms of access and really the land plan, which is that right there.
If I could just add on that horse, obviously, we are working with the advocates and that we've learned a lot and we continue to learn in this area. And so, how we build gates and how we provide pedestrian access, we're learning all those things and we want to make sure that we're why we have this open up, that we apply what we want.
That's a good idea.
This PD.
Let me ask you, I mean, go ahead and then I have a question when everybody's done. Nobody has a question?
No questions from the now?
Okay.
No?
My question then would be, John, I distinctly remember the mayor saying she wasn't gonna review another project until we got this kind of horse corridor figured out. So my question is just, do we have that? Or are we still working on that?
Still working on a lot of progress that's been made. I mean,
Okay.
do you want to answer that, Jim?
Yeah, I will ask Jen.
Or Jen, I mean, you both have been very engaged in that.
We've been working with,
Maybe up here, where the,
You want to point?
no,
Okay.
you can leave it there. We've been working with the horse advocates. Jen, we work with her every week, staff, to make sure that we're addressing these issues. And the mayor did say, hey, you have to have a wildlife plan, is the way she put it.
right,
Part of our wildlife plan here is when we look at all the components of wildlife, including horses, is fencing, water, and we're working on water sources of what we can do, and I've been working with Brooke and the county on, and Brooke can maybe comment on some of the things we're working on there. But for safety and essentially making sure that this plan here can have the horses be in locations and other wildlife be in locations that isn't affected by projects, but also addresses the issues, core issues for water, feeding, seeding, all those types of things.
so, and I'm sorry, I don't know this already. I mean, is Jen one of your consultants? Or,
Jen is advising us on wildlife,
okay,
and
Pro bono.
horses and everything. So maybe she can.
All of us are kind of working together on it. So I'm paid by sources,
oh, okay,
state as well,
what's that?
at the state as well.
NDA, yeah, right, Jen?
and then I
Oh,
do elected officials.
Jen, do you have anything to add on?
Just in.
How about by them?
Sure.
Are you on
Happy to-
consulting with them? So,
Multiple sources, yeah.
but they're, them included.
Them included
That-
for
these people.
moments like this, yes. When
Okay.
we start to write that plan,
Got
all
it.
of them in this area will be consulting with me on it, or I will be consulting with them on it. Not, so in short, where they are at the moment, and this is from horse conversations, community conversations, everybody wants to make sure that there's access. So I've been working with Tracy now for 6.5 years. You and I have talked at length about it.
Yeah,
We've worked on now, so every little piece of it has become a challenge because the water sources, it's illegal to get water from different sources, et cetera. So that's where the bottleneck is at the moment, is trying to figure out what we can and can't do in that area to write it up in an unofficial plan, present it to the city council, and then bring it back. So part of it is the water conversation, just making sure what can and can't be done. The other part was, and we I think got at least close to closure, is the type of gates, the desired type of gates, the size, the type that cannot be crashed, which is the part we're trying to figure out now. How can we get a sustainable gate size and solution? We do have one built, and hopefully will be approved and all of that at some point. So that's where they're at. It's all just making sure that every I is dotted, every T is crossed properly, so that we don't present a plan that could potentially hurt someone later, as you hear me talk about. Loss
So,
of life is my biggest.
I'm just asking Brooke for timing, because obviously this is still in, in development, which is very good.
Mhm.
But just in terms of when are you planning to bring this to council, I guess?
I think obviously we need to work through a lot of these issues.
Okay.
Have them sorted
Yeah.
and.
That makes
So
sense.
I'm not moving forward. I can't give you an exact date, but I wouldn't anticipate, we'd like to move forward, and I think they're doing a lot of work, and I think they have a general plan, and we're kind of all working together, make sure the stakeholders make sure it's working, and then we'll move forward at that point. If staff gets comfortable,
Okay.
and they do have the opportunity to move forward with the staff recommendation for denial. So they could do that, but what we like to do is work that we can find a yes and move forward with something that staff can support.
Well, I guess, as, the council member and all this, just try to keep me in loop.
Certainly.
I just want clarification. I'm sorry if I was not listening. I've been trying to absorb all this. Back to the parcels with the open space on the back of the lots. it's unclear whether that will be accessible to the public, correct?
And we are still working on that to make that decision of how that would be, if that becomes through private property, if there are public access easements, if it's maintained private and they have the right to control it, it's private. We haven't made that determination, but the PGOS is applied over that.
Let me weigh in here so you can see the origin of this line on the map. It's important. I appreciate the question. Public access and connectivity.
You
Right?
know, when people hear open space. you
Look
know
at,
what that
look
means.
at this right here, maybe. See that?
Mhm.
And see what's clearly in that topo, that
Yes.
line. So what we're doing in the PUD, excuse me, it's this one, right? Right there. So that, this line, you know, from that topo is under it, the geometry, the alignments change a bit because there's the water tank, but the idea is we're adding this piece for public access.
And I think, and that's going up an existing road easement, and we have to maintain that easement to those existing properties. I think the question really is, can the public walk across the green space?
Yeah.
And so that is something we were working through and see how that would move forward and the importance of that and what that would look like.
Or
It is the
animals. I mean,
terrain.
would the fence go all the way around the square?
The fence would go around the blue, so
Blue.
around the homes, yeah, and so that area would still be open, wildlife would be able to move and travel through that area. But it's where does the private property rights versus the public having access. And we're-
So Brooke,
we're
just
not
for
that
looking at
determination.
this, I walked that line right there, the property
I
boundary
think on this
line.
one here.
Right. So we also know the blue is like a cliff. And so I
The
don't,
blue's the flat line.
It is just, that blue is just below where it really.
okay, well, where the blue ends is a cliff.
Yeah.
Okay. And the cliff has rolling boulders that come down off of it because they're all over the property. And I guess the question is, it'll be good to see what the plan is, because unless the horses can walk closer to the black straight line, I don't, I'm not sure, like if they're like goats, maybe that will be
Yeah,
determined.
well, and I think what we're looking, the horse can travel there, there's many options. Whenever, the horses, there's a feed and water source, they're being diversionary fed, and there's water source. And now there's opportunities to maybe look and see if that's the appropriate places we've seen develop it, and that may move, which would
Got it.
move and shift those horses and create another opportunity.
Well, you're saying maybe go around the backside of
Yeah,
this
or
whole
maybe
mountain.
Maybe the water and food now gets relocated, and so they don't have to go across that area, and they
Got it.
have access to the Virginia range, but still it's
On the backside.
on the backside, yeah, and could come down and where water could be brought in your ship or whatever that supply becomes, and then the diversionary feeding to bring those horses away from the residential development and the roadways and those things that could be relocated. So that's what we're exploring now. That diversionary feeding and those are contract or agreements with the state. And so those nonprofit organizations currently have those, and we work with all those entities and stakeholders to make sure that we're fulfilling sort of the goals and the needs of all of them.
I want to go back to that trail for just a second. Sorry, I'm like kind of hung up on this. Just have been worked in, with mapping and people and easements and the trail. I guess somewhere with those two, and thinking about the property owners whose properties that trail crosses to get to that water tank. And then, of course, then as it goes up to the higher part of the parcel, I guess there would have to be some kind of agreement where those property owners understand that that is a public access trail. And that they're not, so looking at both sides, the side for the public and actually the side of the homeowner as well, having been in the middle of all this many times, is that, what is it the homeowners are gonna have to agree to allow the public to use that as a public trail that they're really walking across actually behind this
We're
house.
getting into lotting detail.
I know, I'm just wondering, but when we're seeing that trail, that was just my thing. I was just
Right,
wondering.
so think about this.
There currently is an easement on there. because
Yeah.
the Easement's already established, and then we would look as we replatted or do the parcel maps, as they
Yes.
subdivide.
Yes.
That would go.
Let me explain this
Be
map
Another way that we would ensure that was insured, and then when they bought the parcel, that's on their map, right? So
Yes.
it is
Of-
part of that.
Well,
So you see this right here, that road?
yes,
So that's going to be the multi-purpose trail, separate from what's going to be somebody's footprint of their house and their fencing of their yard,
Yes.
they will know it when they buy into it. And then the extension is, where it's not shown on this map, but right.
Right, and I'm just speaking out loud, you guys,
Yeah.
because in theory and in paper and in legal documents, yes, of course, we've got it all documented and it's legal and everything, just, we know how people are.
Yes.
Just speaking from
It would be,
experience.
yeah, you're right. It's gotta be.
Just throwing it out
And
there.
that maybe we do look that within the PUD itself, and we provide some signage or some other things that would be able to notify the public that it is public walking trail.
You know, and I think it's just something to think about to protect the homeowner and to protect the public, or to give rights to the homeowner and rights to the public.
I
That's all I'm saying, so that everybody's holding hands and singing kumbaya when it comes to this access trail for both sides of the fence.
And it may be through some of that wayfinding and signage that we were able to sort of.
That's just my thing, just trying to be, look out for both sides.
Yes.
I'm still stuck on the trail thing. One thing, okay, I'll just have these questions, there's probably one sentence in. The water tank thing that came up. And maybe was having an hallucination, but I'm pretty certain the conversation was, no, this will be access only, it ends here.
I can speak to it. So the tank itself, so if you can see. the tank
Maybe go to a
itself will
different drawing.
Will become a utility parcel. It will be owned by someone. That will be gated and that will be, but there's a road that provides access to that, but that's the same road that moves and has to provide access to the properties up above. And so that will be maintained. And so you will see a small around the water tank, it will be secured with a perimeter fence. We'll have a
Only
gate.
the water tank is secure.
What's that?
Only the water tank is.
Only the water tank, and then the rest will be open around that. So the roadway itself will be open, and then just the road, once it goes past the gate is where.
And the
we
nature of
restrict it.
this roadway is what?
The roadway has, there's an existing dirt roadway there, and there is an existing easement, and what that does is provide legal access to the properties that are to the east of this property.
Is it county easement or what? I mean,
It is filed on the deed, and so it's within the plat map itself, so it is an established easement, yes.
Well, that's in favor of NDOT. I mean, Tumwa. Yeah, that access.
The dirt road that goes up there is a legal access on that the property owners have to access their property.
Yeah, the property owners all in that area is called map 25, and there's,
okay.
the roads are legal easements between all the property owners, and roads are easements, and there's easements on all the borders too for access and utilities. So the property owners have easements between themselves. Now, public's a little bit different. Property owners can get it. By the way, we own all the property up to the Story County border going to the east. But there are other property owners up there that would need these roads and have legal access to those roads.
So, water tank guys are not you guys, right? So, you're the water tank guy?
Yeah, it's on our property, but they're doing the special.
And maybe I can
Source of the
explain.
confusion, there's so many different, and they're all the same maps, and there's the.
And we're twins, if I did, so.
Actually, believe it or not, I can see that.
And a lot of
else
times
is
we'll
here?
see the
This
water
team.
tanks coming through the tentative map process. With this one, we didn't have exactly where Tom wanted height, elevation, we want to make sure. we brought that.
There's so many different pieces and they're all the
That's
same
what I
maps, and I didn't.
Yeah, this is way.
Yeah. Okay, I'd like to bring this back. So we've got, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for indulging all of our questions and giving us these fabulous explanations and detailed explanations. This is difficult with the canyons and Canyon's Edge. I appreciate your guys' presentation and your time, Jim's time, Jack's time, and John's for, all the work that you guys have done, and then, going above and beyond to helping us understand the complexity of the master plans, the amendment to the master plans, the zoning. So thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
So is there
A question for Brooke. Since this is a PUD amendment,
Yes.
when you amend a PUD,
Yes.
I guess the PUD is open.
It is, yes.
So the staff or the city, if you didn't get something right the first time, you could fix it now. Is that correct? I mean, you already mentioned it.
That's why we're relooking at the course from what we've learned, and we want to make sure we're doing that and other things. That we know.
Okay.
A lot of that was, there was a very thorough vetting of that where it came through and a lot of input, but I have identified a few things that I'm kind of moving forward to.
Okay, so you're looking at the big picture.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank
One
you.
last question for you? Right, so
Thank you, John, so
district
much.
development
Yep.
PUD.
Yes.
And then their existing PUD has to be amended to incorporate the second chunk of PUD.
We're amending what we'll do.
You're just trying to write it all.
We're amending the current PUD and expanding it.
Right.
Instead of it being a PUD, we're actually expanding the current PUD.
But at some point, zoning has to change first. Or does
It is
just-
changing through that amendment.
Okay,
So it'll
the
change from
zoning
that,
goes
yeah.
from UT PUD by incorporation, so it's the existing PUD that needs to be amended.
Correct.
And the amendment will then incorporate this other bit.
It'll bring in another 80 acres. and-
So
and
the
the
zoning is actually for the existing PUD, because it's being amended to chuck up this other UT parcel.
Correct. And so it's a zoning map amendment in a way through
So,
the
yeah.
amendment of the PUD. There's so many layers of
So
this one.
for future, if this makes any sense to any of you guys, it would be easier for the average bear to understand it if you're saying, I know you can't propose, you're doing an amendment because that's not your problem, but really to follow the trail on this, it's much easier to say we have an existing PUD, we want to amend it.
Right.
And add this other stuff.
think I said that in the
As opposed
first
to starting out-
sentence.
Well, it took me, I didn't even hear you say it,
Oh.
maybe I guess, because it's just that
Yeah.
confusing, I had to hear it so many times. So it got confusing, and that's with all these different pieces, that makes it a little more linear, and I missed Naomi's.
It was when I first interrupted John and I said, so John, bottom line, you're taking a PUD, you're amending it to incorporate more area.
Yeah.
And on this
That's right,
page, and I just have one more question too. So you've come to the NAB, there's a lot of questions and you're saying, we're working on it, we're working on it. I guess what I would ask is when you get closer, that you come back and answer all these questions as best you can. Like, here's what we're gonna do with the open space. Here's what we're gonna do with the horses.
Yep.
Here's what we're gonna do with the whatever else issue you identified that you just said. That would be really good to close the loop with this group rather than just kind of say, I don't know, we're not sure,
Well,
we're thinking about it.
I think just to be clear, though, when we're, 2 points. One, when to your point, we're adding one village. And now John showed the colored map to say, here's what it is today, we're adding one village, which is just the 8 homes. And as it relates to the other things, I think that we've made a lot of progress on this stuff and as it relates to, John, go to the last slide. There's 2 things. There's one, this here, we're adding village, and 2, this, where we're just expanding the fencing. And the questions on that relate to where the fence should go, what type of gates there should be, those types of things. There isn't a debate that this is the fencing area that we're gonna have, and the reason why we're doing it. Now, the open questions really relate to the types of gates we're gonna have, okay? But we're gonna have gates, ones that what, or the type of fence, the exact location of the fence, which is pretty close to what it is. There isn't a whole lot of questions.
So
on-
Jim, the questions, I didn't hear anybody on the NAB ask that question. There might be other people ask that question, but what I heard them ask was, what is the plan for the open space? Is there gonna be trail connectivity? How's the water tank fit in? Because the last time they heard it was gonna be locked off and now it's gonna be an open trail. So those are not what kind of gate, what kind of
Yeah,
fence?
we changed those questions, like, for example, on that, we have a road that's gonna go all the way to the top still. It's gonna be modified a little bit because that's where the tank is. So the road's still gonna go to the top, the tank's going to be fenced in.
Right.
So there's still gonna be the access road. There's when you talk about fencing up, was just the tank, which legally it has to be done that way.
No, I'm expressing questions that they asked at the last meeting and we're told the answers.
Yeah.
That are a little different this time. The question Mimi asked about the open space, which you said we're still working on. I mean, that's all I said was not what kind of gate or what kind of fence, but just is there public access? That's something that's typically talked about at a PUD.
Yeah.
On the last PUD, they showed where all the trails went, where they were gonna have a gathering space, how the trails were gonna connect to other trails. So that's what the questions are. That's,
Fair question.
yeah.
And there's only one trail up that side of that hill.
Yeah, that's.
Certainly, we've gone
that
over
is-
a lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as a planner, I'm a planner on this, so please direct, you can get
Exactly.
an email, direct it to me, if I'll respond back.
Yeah,
I'm happy to meet or have a phone call with anyone that wants to go through
Yeah.
this more, so.
I'm just saying it could be 6 months. It could be 2 months. You got all this figured out. It could be 6 months. If it starts being longer, it would be good to come back before you go into these bodies. That's all.
Certainly.
So I have, it might be a suggestion or a question or something totally off base. The very first slide says, this proposal, which is what we're supposed to make a comment on, is whether or not it's appropriate to change the zoning from UT to PUD.
Right.
Okay, that's our question. But somehow the way this all works together becomes very important. And I'm looking at that, like, well, but your group is saying you're not actually changing it from UT to PUD and then incorporating it in another PUD. It's actually saying it's all gonna be in one
Right.
file, and doing it that way. So that's confusing in terms of that manner of presentation. Perhaps that first slide could just be simplified or diagrammed. So right off the beginning, I don't have to waste another hour.
Right.
on this. Because it's not that, your slide said thing A,
You're talking about this in,
yeah, right off the bat, this is
Right.
what we're supposed to say we like or we don't like. Do we
Yeah.
want to let you go from UT to PUD, rezone you?
Yeah.
You know? And that's what our comment is supposed to address, because that's the issue at hand, but that's not really
Yeah,
how the
and-
trail is
and
gonna
I-
work on this one, so.
Yeah, I understand. Certainly, I think there's a clarity that we could bring that, and I'll work with also our description that goes out.
That's a good
that we're
idea.
doing, that I will
That's
work
a
with
very
Al
good
to
idea.
Get that to be a little bit more clear through our description.
Because that's where the public gets
Yeah.
lost.
I hope that was a useful comment. I'm just saying-
Thank you,
No,
Donna.
very
Just
useful,
wasted
and I think it
20
helps.
minutes on that, but in a diagram, I can see you can turn it all into one thing.
Right.
With one master plan amendment. and all the-
we were trying to show it here, Donna, right? From
Yeah.
here, that's basically the change.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
It's the. it's
But the
what
discussion-
I'm supposed to comment on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe for sake
Fair
of
enough.
ease moving forward, like if this has to go before the planning commission, to again, get all this stuff out now and then perhaps,
No, I think this is-
simplify it
this
before
is
you hit
really
the next
helpful on
level.
How we not only get the information to the planning
Yeah.
commission, but.
Well, you're doing a first screening.
But-
Yeah.
And you're finding out where the points of confusion are.
That's exactly
So
right.
that you can present it to planning commission, and that's the very helpful thing that Donna's doing.
Incredibly helpful.
Yes.
Mimi's doing,
Thank you.
okay,
All
Thank
right.
you so much,
Thank
you
you,
guys.
everybody.
And
Thank
Brooke,
you.
thank you.
okay.
Jim, John, you guys. Jennifer, thank you for.
Yeah, thank
spending
you.
your evening
You
with
bet.
us. I appreciate it. We'll see you
See you
next time.
guys.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies, thank you so much for your patience. We're gonna go into our last project. It's Gateway at Galena annexation. Gateway at Galena annexation. ANX 22000. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for your patience.
Sure. I'm Lauren Knox. I'm with Manhart Consulting, and I'll be discussing the annexation for the Gateway at Galena. Oh,
Can I ask you why this didn't come before us first before the previous project? Can I just throw that out there right now and ask that question?
sure.
And I'm happy to answer also from like the staff perspective of how this came through. And so when this came through, we have the project that you saw, the development project, which will be heard at the planning commission tomorrow night.
Cool.
The staff has recommended approval of that. So that is tomorrow at 6 p.m. There's a portion that is not annexed, but it is in the sphere of influence. So that means that we have jurisdictional authority over that.
Okay.
So they could come through and they could develop that within the two parcels. They would like to, the ability to dedicate those roads back to the city. We will not accept roads that are not within the city. And so through the process of a voluntary annexation, they have the right, because they are adjacent, they own the property. Through state law, they're able to annex that. And that's a large portion of what is sort of driving this. And that was sort of discovered through the process of.
So it was a little bit of an oversight.
It was
Like a
oversight,
oops.
and then, if they would maintain private roads, we don't care. But if we're gonna take them, they need to be in the city.
Because I remember when the folks came in last month and I said, is this in Washoe County or the city of Reno? And they said, oh, it's in the city of Reno. And I was like, okay, so.
It's actually in both.
Yes, yes. So that's why when I saw it on the agenda, I was like, I will ask that question. So
Yeah, there's many layers there too. There's master plan on the site, and then there's also city zoning already on the site. So
Yes.
there was some confusion and trying to figure out between staff and us, okay, what happened here? And
well, everything on paper was great, the actual physical property.
And that's zoning
To go with it.
through that sphere of influence where we do have authority over that area.
Thank
But
you
we
so
don't
much.
have- It's not in the city. So I hope that was helpful.
Does everybody get that? Okay, everybody, is everybody good that has that out there? Thank you. So I want to make sure that moving forward that to Donna's point, that we made sure that that was clear of how come this wasn't presented to us prior to the project. Go ahead.
Sure. Is this ready to go now?
Should be.
Okay. All right, so the site is located at 18600 Wedge Parkway. So that, as you can see, is south of Mount Rose, east of 580, west of 580 and east of Wedge Parkway. As you can see, the surrounding uses, it's also south of that UNR Redfield campus. To the west of that property, there is some commercial development. And then to the north, there's also a commercial development as well as the single-family residence. So the land use that exists on site currently is City of Reno Master Plan land use of public, quasi-public. And the zoning that exists is the mixed-use suburban zoning. And again, we already kind of talked about that annexation piece and the confusion and what's going on there. There's also some consistency discussions between the existing public, quasi-public master plan land use and the mixed suburban zoning. So that may also look like a future staff initiated fix to try and put that into better consistency with itself.
Yeah, our planning team is currently going through and finding those inconsistencies, and we'll be bringing those into conformance so that the master plan is matching with that.
Because
Change the master plan, to the underlying zoning instead of changing the underlying to master plan.
It kind of goes back, it can go back and forth. And so what's happened here is that was traditionally owned by a government agent, so by the school, and they had sold it. And so it had that PF master plan, but had always had that suburban mixed use, or at that time, it was a mixed use, but it was the Peabody, or not Peabody, excuse me, it was the Redfield area. So we had a whole other set of things with our zoning code update that we just recently did. Those were sort of incorporated back into that to meet the Redfield plan, but we sunsetted the Redfield plan.
I'm confused about where the inconsistency is, but in TF, you can build single family.
Yeah, and then the inconsistency is that suburban mixed use, which is the zoning that is currently there, is not a conforming zoning under the public facility master plan. So what we'd anticipate is that master plan would change to bring that suburban mixed use into conformance. So we'd see most likely a mixed use or some other master plan that is in alignment with the underlying zoning.
Isn't there something about the public facility allows that kind of residential development?
So the zoning is what's going to allow that to happen. The master plan is sort of that bigger policy of how that happens.
Right.
And because it was originally owned by the university, I had that SMU, it's not, as we've updated our master plan and our zoning, they're currently out of conformance. And so staff is going through and is finding those areas of inconsistency, bringing them into conformance.
So technically, they can't build what they want to build.
They can, because they have the zoning of the suburban mixed use. So it's the zoning, yeah, but it is the zoning that allows for the development, not the master.
The new zoning absorbed the old, what you just said, the new zoning, what you guys just rezoned to absorb that old public facility that it went into it and kind of got rid of that.
Yeah, and maybe that's a little confusing. So when we did the Title 18, which is our land development code, it was mixed use out there. And then it had that Redfield and
Yes.
Redfield plan on it. That became we moved that under the suburban mixed use. So that modified to that suburban mixed use.
Perfect.
But the PF as the master plan had been there, but the zoning is what allows for development, not the master plan.
Right, but the finding is conformance with the master plan.
No, there is that sort of thing, and there's that inconsistency, but that is where we are going currently. we redid our master plan, we redid our Title 18. We have hundreds of properties that are not in conformance, and we are bringing, and we voluntarily, so at council, we've seen a number, especially in the North Valleys, coming forward and saying, hey, we'd like to get into conformance, and we're doing that and processing for free because it's taken us a lot of time to sort it all out. And so once we do, they will start to get everything into conformance. And what we would anticipate is that PF master plan will be coming into conformance with the underlying zoning and the entitlement of that.
What does that mean with the master plan?
There's a few things at SMU it could be mixed neighborhood, it could be a few things, and they will look to see what's appropriate with surrounding uses and how that will be applied.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
One thing I didn't get that you said, Brooke, was you said the Redfield plan went away, but didn't an applicant bring that and did they dissolve the PUD? I'm confused about that.
Redfield is not a PUD. It was so we had sort of we had area plans. And
it was an area plan?
It was a regional center.
Regional center plan.
Yeah. And
gotcha.
And
I know that you got rid of most of the center plans.
Yeah, but what we are still doing, right? We still reference that because there's a number of things, the steamboats within that and many of the other concerns and issues are identified in that.
Steamboat Creek, you mean? Or
in that old plan, it talks about there's steamboat buckwheat in the area. And
oh, yeah.
Things. So we use that as a reference to understand what we'd anticipate.
Okay, the data and information in the plan is still valid. It's just that you don't have a plan.
Yeah, it's not.
Or
it's
center
not,
plan.
Yeah, it's not associated. It is now that suburban mixed use. Yeah, hopefully that's
okay.
clarity, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's completely fine. And the regional center plan was also dissolved when the Truckee Meadows regional plan was updated. So it was.
I didn't know that.
One of those pieces that became this kind of mixed suburban zoning, held that same zoning, the same standards there. It just looks a little bit different.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely fine. So this brings us to our application. So this is for a voluntary annexation of 33.71 acres. That's those 3 parcels on that site. Again, it was initially unclear if annexation was necessary or what the process to go down was, and this is where we landed. And so as you are also aware, brought to you recently were the related applications of the tentative map for the 361 condominium units, as well as the conditional use permit. So as you can see on this slide, this site is within the city of Reno's sphere of influence. It's also in a county island. So that light blue area on the left, that is all part of the county surrounded by city limits essentially there.
Can you point that out a little better?
Sure. So this area here, this whole light blue,
yeah,
that is all county island.
Okay.
The dark blue, the surrounding all in here, that's city of Reno jurisdiction.
And Mount Rose Highway is where?
Mount Rose Highway is right here. And then 580 is coming down this side here.
Okay, so let me just make sure I know. Mount Rose, so this is on the south side of Mount Rose, I mean, north side of Mount Rose?
South side.
So north is up, south is down, Mount Rose is going down, 395 or I-580, right there.
580 is right here. Yep.
Got it.
If you're familiar, that's that Rayleigh's area here. Galena High School is down over here.
Where did you say, Galena?
Galena High School is down in this general area.
Okay.
Okay. So also the particular property is in the tier 1 land in the Truckee Meadows regional plan. So really that area is a priority area for growth and for development. Tier 1 land indicates that basically due to a variety of factors, it's prime for development. So including proximity to existing development, public facilities, and services.
So if you annex your piece that's outlined in the red, does that mean that the parcel to the north and the parcel to the east are still going to be outlying islands within Washoe County?
That'll still be an island. There have been conversations, this was brought up in our staff applicant meeting as well.
Yeah.
We have reached out here to the UNR Redfield campus to see if they were interested at all in also being a part of an annexation or going down that same process. So they are in discussions.
The weird part is this side over here is really public right of way. It's part of that 580 corridor.
So they don't care.
So that's kind of, yeah, it's just it's an interesting mapping area. It was in existence probably prior to 580 being thought about there. So
Yeah.
it was a parcel at some point that someone owned. And now it's really public right of way. So that'll be a mapping piece we'll have to probably talk about with the city staff to look through. Any questions on that?
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
Tier 1 Washoe County priority area, you get an annex to the city. It doesn't really matter anymore.
It's tier 1 regional plan. So yeah, the regional plan, it's really the second priority area in the region for growth, for regional, to accommodate that regional growth.
You know, and that didn't come up in your discussion on the last project because that is in
That is
tier 3
It is in tier 3 and it would have to have a tier change to.
also
accommodate
at
itself.
master plan.
And we would see that with the master plan going forward. If the master plan goes forward to regional, that would be
Okay, so
contemplated and modified at that.
I
time.
think that's important for the people on the Zoom and the people in the room, because that never got mentioned. I just realized now that you're mentioning it, tier 2. The other one that we were talking about is tier 3, which they're considering what, the last land to be developed or?
The last, and they are looking at, that went through, they would need to bring that up to tier 2, to the regional process.
Okay.
To accommodate, to kind of move forward.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Naomi, you're talking about the last presentation, not the
Yes.
last time we saw this presentation.
correct. The last
Okay.
presentation, I'm sorry, I just
The
thought I better
canyon.
blurt it out.
The
Uh,
Canyon's
Canyon's Edge
Yeah,
project.
The
they didn't-
Canyon's Edge.
They didn't mention anything.
That property's in tier 3.
3,
which
okay,
is-
got it.
Has to change in order to get developed. And was that annexed?
It was annexed, it was
Okay.
annexed maybe back in probably 2019.
Okay,
In the contemplation of the water tanks being on that property.
that, but only that part or the whole thing?
The whole, there are two.
I remember this discussion now.
40-acre parcels.
I
and
do
they-
remember this.
Yeah,
Okay.
they
years
were both
later.
annexed at that time.
Yeah, okay, so back to you. I'm so sorry.
No problem. All right, so annexation of the property would meet many of the goals of the City of Reno Master Plan, particularly policy 2.1D, which is related to annexations as well as the annexation review considerations. The first, the site is contiguous to the City of Reno limits, thus it would be a logical extension of the City of Reno. As mentioned previously, it's located within the sphere of influence already and is within a county island. The Reno Master Plan really encourages annexation of those county islands so that we're not having those inconsistencies that really, it's called a Swiss cheese look in terms of what the city limits look like there. Being in tier 1, again, it's a priority area for development. And then a fiscal analysis was performed and indicates that a positive fiscal impact would come towards the city. Approval of the annexation and the related applications discussed earlier would help to address the need for additional housing stock, which is a need in terms of regional growth. Due to the property already being annexed within the county island, or already being within the county island and the surrounding infrastructure, annexation would expand the city's infrastructure in a coordinated way, a logical extension of that infrastructure. The site is already within the Truckee Meadows Water Authority service area. And approval would also allow for the enhanced mixture of uses, because what it would really do is allow us to recognize that zoning, that mixed use zoning that exists on site already. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
What's the developer's goal for annexation? Not having to maintain the streets, or where's the benefit?
So the annexation would really help in terms of those other development applications. So the city street, the dedication piece, all of that, if they're going to be developed towards City of Reno standards, which is what would be wanted, it would need to be annexed in order to do that dedication piece. So
Of the streets.
correct.
You don't want to have private streets. Private.
Right.
So you said that's already been annexed through the TMWA process from Washoe County to the City of Reno?
It's part of the Tumwa service area.
Okay.
So yeah, it's already in there.
Services are in place. for
In
that-
place,
that
yep.
area.
That's a brutal
And this is
process.
something that, and understand that those are not, the annexation can happen without the development, or the
Yeah.
development without the annexation. They're independent, not dependent on each other.
Can you refresh us a couple things? Does this need a CUP for the units?
the number of units over 20 units, yes.
And how many units were there, did you say?
361, that's for the residential condominium units. And then there's also 213, I believe that's the correct number, right, Karen? 213 garage units.
Okay, and they're considered separate or something?
Yeah.
So you said it needs a CUP. Are there different criteria for the CUP over 20? It's over 20. This is 360.
Over 20, and I think they're, trying to remember, is there a cuts and fills is required
Yeah.
for those? And what we do, those would be site plan reviews, but when we have a conditional use permit, we bundle all of those under the conditional use permit and bring them forward
As one?
Yes.
So you have cuts and fills, you have more than 20 units. And it's more than 20 units because of what? I mean, why is that important? Oh, hi.
Hi, I'm Karen Downs. We talked last month on the
Yes.
project itself. So normally it's be a minor CUP for more than 20 units, so not reviewed by NAB, Planning Commission or council. But because this went with the tentative map and the cuts and fills, then it kind of bumps it up to a CUP. So normally it would be, if it were apartments, it would just go straight to, or be a minor CUP and go through staff. review.
If you didn't have,
What's that?
There's 100.
100 what?
Units.
They
It's
said
different in different
360.
zones. So this one, if it's more than
20.
I'd look at if there's a different trigger for 100, there's not in this zone. If it's 20 or more is the.
So
minor CUP.
another question I had was, ever since I've been on council, the Mount Rose Highway Scenic Corridor has been a thing. And could you just, for example, you were talking about the Redfield development earlier. As I recall, the Redfield development, which was in this Redfield plan, maybe, they had to like have 25-foot or lower pediment signs. It was a PUD and there were standards that had to be met. They couldn't be so tall. The signage had to be X small. And it was further down Mount Rose Highway than this, right? So I just wanted to understand the relationship.
I have been reviewing both of those documents in preparation for planning commission tomorrow night. The Mount Rose Scenic Highway Corridor ends at Wedge Parkway. Throughout it, though, there are some standards in there for related to Wedge Parkway itself, but it also talks about, growth specifically in this area and coordinating with that Redfield Center plan. So it does implement that Mount Rose corridor, even though it's not within it.
So the plan went away, but the standards are, you said we're still using the document for the data, what it was.
For the data, but they are not, it's not enforceable. We use it for the data in there to help us make an informed decision.
But let me ask you this, Brooke. I mean, that had certain planning standards in it to be more consistent with this area. That's why it was existed. So to just dissolve it but not retain the standards, that's my question.
So it did retain some of the standards through that mixed use suburban zoning designation.
Okay.
However, there's some specific standards. So for example, and this is not related to the annexation. This is just answering the project questions itself. So in looking today at some of the standards, and there's, a lot, what I noticed today, it had for this specific area that was zoned for retail academic use.
Right.
And housing associated with the university, it said it required an average of 30 units per acre.
Okay.
And a minimum of 14 units per acre. That did not carry over to the mixed use zoning, mixed use suburban zoning designation.
Okay.
And this project, for example, the proposed project is at 10.71. So it's less than what?
10.7.
10.71 units per acre.
They had a minimum of 14 and a maximum of 30, and you're at 10.
They recommended an average of 30. There's no
Average.
maximum.
Got it. But there was a minimum.
But there was a minimum of 14.
And yours at 10 is below that.
10.71 for all three. If you recall, there were those three different areas.
And did they talk about the signs and stuff like that?
So it doesn't extend to this area. I didn't look through the whole, what the sign standards are, but they would specifically be for Mount.
That was
Rose,
something
and
that
it's
stood
of
out
this
for me
area.
because on Mount Rose Highway, there's a 300-foot setback for, and I don't know which kind of signs, billboards or signs. I don't recall how it applies, but I guess you're saying it starts at Wedge.
Correct.
The 300-foot setback?
Yeah.
I don't know about the setback, but the corridor.
Well, this I do know.
Yeah, the corridor
Okay.
starts at, it goes up.
Yeah, but in the scenic corridor, you can't have signs within 300 feet of the road. I mean, these signs of certain size, those details I don't have, but it's come before us. Do you guys remember the McDonald's on Wedge Parkway, the lighted sign. They had to put a plywood board over it until they could get the certain kind of lighted LED lights. I mean, we've been through this a few times. Whether it's a sign height or sign brightness. And I just didn't know if any of those standards, that was a big discussion here, just so you know, right at Wedge Parkway. In fact, the McDonald's is just south of Wedge Parkway in that development with the Rayleighs. Just like this is just south of Wedge Parkway, right?
Yeah, south of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
South of Mount Rose and east of, that's what I meant.
We need a rec facility.
Yeah.
And that also
So-
was related to the brightness of our electronic signs.
Right.
So which is.
But I mean, just let's say they put a gas station on this side. That's what I'm saying, to go with the houses, and they said, I think you said, well, maybe you didn't, maybe you just said 361 condos, no retail. Okay. Answers that?
Anybody overcomplicate your relatively simple voluntary request to become part of the city.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Is there anybody on the public here? I still see people hanging on the public, and I didn't know if any of them had questions.
Yep.
Oh, now there's only 3.
No answer.
Okay, thank you, ladies, so much for your patience and.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to board, commission, committee member reports and announcements.
Just really quickly, I wanted to say the NAP trainings available on the NAP page now, if anyone wanted to go back and look at that.
Are they gonna do like a?
We already did it.
Hmm.
With all the NAPs were invited, there's recordings, you can look at open meeting law and land use designation / zoning training.
Okay,
The slides as well as the video are available on reno.gov/NAB.
cool.
I have one thing to report. This is from years ago. I don't know how many of you remember. Everybody know where that property is at Circuit City and the old Sports Authority
Yeah.
lots? And that was gonna be developed by Stations Casino? Well, the property's been sold to a new property owner and they're coming back in with a hotel and casino development. So I'm assuming that at some point this year, we're gonna be seeing probably a special use permit for
Well,
that
they're out there
property.
grading.
For that property. So it's been sold and they're gonna do another big development. So everybody keep your eyes peeled and ears open for what they hear about. They wouldn't tell me who it is. I tried to pry it out of them. I tried my hardest.
But I mean, don't they have to come in for some kind of building permit, Nick, or I guess?
I'm back here.
Oh.
And I'm not completely sure what they'll be coming in for, but a building permit will be required. If they're currently grading, they do have a grading permit. Or hopefully they have a grading permit, but I imagine they do.
Well, the property's still in escrow. They're closing escrow. So I don't know if they're already doing work and it's.
Could you
We
check
have-
on
we have-
this?
we have not seen a building permit or anything.
But could you
come
check
in.
on this? Because
Yeah.
I just drove by there yesterday and there's grading going on the whole
So
place.
I can double check.
Yeah.
It is, just so I have a better idea of the parcel, it is directly.
So the convention center,
Yeah,
the vacant
south of
lot,
the convention center.
yeah, and then the Circuit City and the Old Sports Authority.
And what about the coffee?
All that.
Where Dutch Brothers is there and that, yeah. So I will take a look in that area and I've heard rumblings as you have, but we have not seen anything formal. I
Okay.
can check on the grading.
I thought you guys might want to know that because that was a big thing for
Yeah,
us.
It was.
confused. I thought I knew what you were talking about. Now I don't. So we're at the convention center, we're going south on,
We're going across the street.
across the street.
Yeah, the old Circuit City Sports Authority is, yeah. So it'd be interesting to see what they do there. So I thought you guys would want to know
Yeah.
that's yet again back on the table for development. Thank you for that, Nick. If anybody wants to look at the trainings, please go on the NAB website. Future agenda items, does anybody have anything they want to? Mara, if you have something good for us?
I hope so. So I had a couple of questions from the actual NAB training. One of them was a comment that was made by somebody about the city looking into public access to our personal information. And because we made an application into the city and because we're on the NAB. So I'm curious if we could have a future follow-up as to what the city's doing about it. Specifically for me, I mean, I know they need to be able to contact us because we're on the NAB, that's fine. But for our addresses to actually be in there because of our application process.
Great question.
The other one was on timing and what the average, I'm just curious about other wards, like what the average timing is of their meetings.
Timing,
Like length?
like day?
Length, yeah.
I can't comment to all of them, but I know that generally around 2 hours. I know Ward 3 had one as short as 30 minutes the other day.
Wow, okay.
That's because they don't have the difficult development projects that we have.
Question, I'm gonna,
1.5 to 2 hours. I attend them all.
Yes.
1.5 to 2 hours. Okay, great. Thank you.
wait, a question I would direct to our NAB. Do we want to be more stringent on the timelines and then circle back to ongoing conversations at the end? If for anything out of respect to the other presenters. So like I want to point to the last folks today, and that's brutal.
Yeah.
So do you want, just because I make the agenda, do you want like an action item to talk about? The length of the
Process,
meeting?
maybe?
Yeah.
You know, I agreed. I think we did get off topic a little bit, and as the chair, I'll take responsibility for that because I could have wrangled us back in. This NAP typically has been kind of a free form, free flow, especially because we do tend to get a little bit into the nitty gritty with the weeds of some of these developers, but we do end up sifting through and getting a lot of great answers. But yes, we went over today, and so if we want to discuss that for future items, Nick, thank you, and I'll do a better job of.
I'll include both of those.
Great job.
I see that we set the time for each item, but we are then not mindful to it. So either get rid of the times or.
I see that.
More structured.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I
And
appreciate
also question is, just to follow up, Mara, I think to Mimi's point earlier, we have been the greatest growth area by far. We gained about 10 to 15,000 more residents. That's why I had to lose about 10,000 residents out of Ward 2. We've had project after project after project for like 5-6 years. And so we do tend to go usually right to 8:30. We usually end right at 8:30. So.
And our projects are hard. I mean, those NABs don't have wild horse issues, and they're not dealing with the PUDs and the developments and the grading issues and the road issues and the water tank issues. And, we have hard stuff based on our ward and where these developments are going. And so I applaud our board members and Councilwoman Dewar for your diligence in asking those questions and putting their feet to the fire and making them, be accountable for the development in our ward. And, some of our road projects, it's hard, you guys, in our
In
ward.
fact, the council did not realize till we got into redistricting at the end of November, December. I specifically remember they said this. Naomi, no wonder you're so busy. And I said, yes.
Yes.
They said, we had no idea. Like you have, 20% more people than we do, and all the growth this year. And like in the infill by, let's say Ward 1, they just, it's a house here, a house there, a little apartment complex or something, but.
And that's because you
I
guys are
appreciate that.
awesome members, and you guys care about your ward and you ask great questions.
I, for one, think it's worthwhile taking the extra time to hack this stuff out, because sometimes there are members of the public here or even other board members who may find things interesting that they didn't understand about the details, or the developers certainly then cannot have to do this in front of planning commission.
We have very engaged community members, and our community members in our ward are smart. They're informed. So, that lends itself to longer conversations sometimes as well.
Nick, maybe you could follow up. It looks like we got a comment at 8:40 about the scenic corridor has a 35-foot height restriction, and I don't know how that blends with the condos. Okay, but maybe that's something you could follow up with them on.
I could look into that.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Any other future agenda items? No? Okay. Any public comment? Anybody left? All right. Anybody would like to move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second? Anybody second?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Good night. Yeah.
And I didn't say that we shouldn't have the conversation and go deep.
Somebody
I just think